We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And welcome back, Tom. Now with a new chair. Fancy new chair.
I know, yes. Let's make sure we mention the new chair, which I guess I have to look up and say where I got it. I got it from Amazon.
Okay.
So that way I can write it off, maybe?
Right.
Maybe
it's
I
an
can
office
write
chair.
it off. I don't know. It's an office chair.
And hopefully a little bit more comfortable than the dining room chair with no cushion that you were using previously.
This is definitely not just some knockoff brand.
Okay.
Because it is definitely a knockoff brand.
A string of letters that all the Chinese knockoff
It's
brands
like this
use.
thing is missing a vowel in a big way. I don't know. Gabryly. That's not enough vowels. Gabberly. Lily. Anyways,
yeah,
it's a
highly
knockoff
recognizable household
yes,
name.
just comes off the tongue. Anyways, my office. I want to say in my life never had a new office chair.
Okay.
Like, all my office chairs have been either handed down or found on the side of the road. I am too cheap to buy things that I can just get. So we have had a string of terrible chairs in this house that have no padding, that are just absolutely miserable.
Lovely.
So I have been using I bought a cushion.
Yes.
Like a travel cushion that you can take on airplanes.
Sure.
Because apparently I can sit on a carbon fiber bicycle seat for 2.5 hours and not have a problem. But I can't sit on a plane for 90 minutes without like my butt going completely numb and being so uncomfortable I want to just jump out the plane. So I bought this travel cushion and I've been using it on everything. I've been using it on my dining room chairs when I'm in here. I've been using it on my office chair when I'm working. And I finally said, listen, we're just going to buy a chair. We're going to buy a chair. And my wife's like, I don't understand why you haven't bought a chair yet. You've been complaining about it for years. I'm like, because I'm cheap. You married me. You know who
Even
I
I have mentioned that this was a possibility that chairs do exist available for purchase.
They do.
Better
so it's
than
about
what you're using.
I think it's about $120, $130 or whatever. And it's all mesh, which is nice because in Florida,
the ventilation is
hot.
a help. Yeah.
Yes. Like it is always, you're always hot, you're always sweating. There's always some thin layer of moisture between you and anything you're sitting on. So having it mesh all the way through, I know it's not, I don't know why anybody lives here. Honestly, there's the couple of months in the winter when people come here and go, oh my God, it's like summer where I come from. I'm like, yeah, summer where we are at is like,
yes. Much hotter than this. Yeah.
Just about as bad as it can possibly be. So I've been near the equator. I've been in countries that don't have AC. It never feels as bad as Florida does. You just walk outside and you're like, geez.
I mean, you'd be the one to explain why you live there, because I certainly haven't and have no intention to. So,
believe me, my wife and I are constantly having that conversation. Anyways, so we got this chair and it's so far. This will be I don't think this will be the longest, but this will be like I have to sit very sedentary for this, very still for this podcast, so that I'm in frame for our YouTube videos, and so I will be mentioning. We'll put a link up here for the chair so you can go check it out. But there are chairs that have more adjustability to them. There's chairs that have more. Anyways, my son was a big part of why we chose this chair because I told him to do the research. And the thing that he cared about was having armrests that were attached to the back and not the bottom.
Okay.
So that when you leaned back, the armrests were still in place.
Right.
This has only got you can like release it so you can kind of just lean back and rock like a rocking chair. Or it's got like, one other locking position. And a lot of them have 2 or 3 locking positions so that you can like pick your I never knew that, so I didn't care about that part.
Welcome to Chaircast, folks.
I have chairs. I have a chair now. So we're going to try to figure this out. We're going to see how this chair works. We're going to see how comfortable it is. And if you see me next week on
something else,
then you'll know that
yes.
2+ hours sitting in this chair for this dang podcast was too much for this. But so far, it feels pretty comfortable, so
cool.
We'll see.
Upshot being, if you're seeing the YouTube version, Tom appears smaller in the frame because he's leaning back now. Doesn't have to sit all up close to the camera and lean forward anymore. And he is swiveling around there a little bit, so you get to enjoy that. But before we go any further, I wanted to say my thank yous to Lee Overstreet for filling in as guest co-host last week for the regular podcast, which was not even the intention. All worked out for the best because we did a second entire, almost 2-hour episode with Joe Klusnick. The original plan was...
I cannot leave you alone.
I know.
You're not trustworthy. You're not a trustworthy person.
When the cat's away, that's what'll happen.
Apparently,
well,
you're the cat, or I'm the cat.
No, the intention was single episode with. It was going to be Lee and Joe together. We're going to be a 3-person episode. We're going to cover Cedia and the questions, but I was using StreamYard just so we could do the 3-person recording a little bit more easily, and for whatever reason, StreamYard and Joe's internet connection do not like each other. Those two things absolutely did not get along, even the following day when Joe and I did record together our Cedia special, which was episode 932, and hopefully you didn't miss that, but you can look for that. It was all Cedia slideshow and news that we went through in a special breakout episode, no questions, that one. So, even there, StreamYard refused to work, and we had to revert back to Skype, and it was just technical difficulties all around last week. But thank you to Lee. Thank you to Joe.
When you don't listen to me and do the things I want you to do.
Right. You didn't leave any instructions, Tom.
You know what I want.
I see. Also, Tom is now objectively lighter in mass. Something has been removed from Tom's head. So how did all that go? That's why you were away last week.
Yeah, so I had a tooth removed. As many people do when they're in college, they are dumb. They're dumb in college. I mean, I thought I was very smart, but I was not. And one of the dumb things I did was for a while I was still on my parents' insurance, and I wasn't on my parents' insurance. But either way, I stopped going to the dentist for a number of years. And then one day, well after I was off of my parents' insurance, I realized that there was a hole in one of my back molars. I was like a physical, like I felt it with my tongue.
Right,
like, that can't possibly be good.
A true
so I went
cavity.
to a true cavity in the literal sense of the word.
That's right.
So I ended up at the dentist, and they were like, "Yeah, that's not good. We're gonna have to do a root canal, and we're gonna hopefully be able to cap it. That we'll see how much of the tooth is left. All blah 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 blah." Yeah. So they did, and it cost me a lot of money out of pocket. I had to pay for it. You know, I probably put me on a payment plan. It was like the whole thing. It was still probably cheaper what they would have charged the insurance, but still. And he had an awesome name too. The dentist was like Dr. Killjoy or something. It was perfect. I don't remember what his name was, but it was something like that. Anywho, so they capped it, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
Fast forward 25 plus years, and I'm cycling, and I feel something hard in my mouth, and I spit it out. I'm like, oh, that must have been a filling. But I can't find a hole in any of my teeth where the filling would have come out of. And I'm like, okay. So I then go to the dentist. Next time I go to the dentist, I mentioned to him, listen, this happened, and now my back molar feels a little weird.
Sure.
And they looked at it, and they're like, the hygienist looked at it and went, I don't know, it's fine to me. The dentist came in and goes, oh, no, yeah, that's a problem. So basically the what was left of the tooth underneath has started to disintegrate, and they were like, you got to get this thing out. So long story short, I go to the oral surgeon. He says it's going to be, the hard part's going to be getting the anesthetic, which was not hard. I've had a lot of dental work. I'm used to getting shots in my mouth, which makes a lot of people cringe. I know.
I mean, don't they do the little,
relax.
They put the little cotton swab with the little lidocaine on there. You barely feel a thing anymore.
Yeah, well, this time that it was true. Most of the times I feel a lot.
Okay.
And I come from a generation of, if you're a Gen Xer like I am, you remember having to get your teeth cleaned.
I remember when they didn't have the little lidocaine before the Novocaine needles, so you felt those needles going in at least the first couple of times, and Well, I even remember that they were like, oh, we're gonna like polish or clean your teeth or whatever, and they would put like this like
mouth guard on you.
Oh,
and
yes.
It would be full of gel, and it would slowly eke down the back of your throat.
That's right.
As you're sitting there going, trying not to.
And when you had those lovely all over the place. Dental dam things that go in, and they got the metal that's prying your mouth open with the rubber gasket over your entire face.
Yeah.
And,
So I've had all of the any dental work you can think of, just about I've had. When I was in middle school, I had braces and got kicked in the mouth and lost a bunch of teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I've got caps all over the place. Anyways. So, this tooth apparently had roots going in all directions. And that guy, he had his forearm on my forehead. Yep. He was yanking. He kept not cursing, but he kept apologizing for torturing me. I'm like, listen, that's not the word you want to use that when you're doing things to other people, unless that's what they're into. And I am not. So he did get it all out. And they didn't replace it with anything. Which is fine, I guess.
Yep. Just old gap-toothed Tom in there now.
Yeah, well, it's in the back molar. You can't see.
That's right, yeah.
So, anywho, they, so the stitch, there was a couple stitches. Yeah. Those fell out a couple of days ago. Okay. Like heck. But I'm basically back to now. But the day of the surgery, they're like, we're going to give you a prescription for Vicodin. I was like, ooh, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. They're like, yeah, but we're going to give you a prescription just in case. I'm like, I'm not taking it. And I didn't. I just took Advil because I have taken Vicodin before for my knee surgery. And the coming off the Vicodin, even if you take it way less than they tell you to take it, I have a whole new empathy for people who find themselves accidentally addicted to opiates after that experience, because that was eye-opening. That for me.
South of the border and the painkillers, they flow like candy. We're quite the opposite north of the border over here.
I was appalled as to how easy it was for me to feel really bad after stopping taking these opiates. So
when I had
I am better. I am back. I can talk again. I can eat all the foods, so things are
very good. Yeah, when I had all 4 of my wisdom teeth out, one of which was at a lovely 60-degree angle and required quite the amount of leverage to pry that thing out the back of my head, I got Tylenol. That's what you get in Canada. I got Tylenol.
Advil's better.
Right.
Than Tylenol.
Anti-inflammatory.
Anywho.
That was it. All right, so I think we caught
Rob,
up. Yeah.
What did we watch?
Indeed, I just watched one thing this week that I'll talk about, which is the movie I Saw the TV Glow. This is a low-budget film written and directed by, I am going to mispronounce this person's name, Jane Schoenbrunn.
I don't know. I think you said Jane properly.
I hope so. Even that might be incorrect. This person did change their name.
It's Yane or something like that.
Someone who underwent their transgender, so that name was not the name they were originally given at birth, so that has been changed. But yeah, this is starring Justice Smith, who I am very impressed with Justice Smith. The more things that I see him in, he is a chameleon of an actor.
That name can go either way too. I mean, when you said Justice Smith, I did not think of a male actor. I was like,
he was the star in the Pokemon Detective Pikachu movie.
Yeah.
That was him in that. But he's been in many other things. I've seen him in Voyeurs recently. Yeah, real chameleon of an actor. I mean, if you didn't recognize him from project to project, I wouldn't blame you, because not for being unrecognizable, no, for being that good of an actor, where he really just completely changes per role. Now, opposite Justice Smith as the other star is Bridget Lundy Payne. They're non-binary, so use they, them pronouns. And this movie, from the writer-director, I mean, it is intended to be, it's all dreamlike. It's taking place in the 80s and early 90s. There's a little bit of time jumping that goes on in here. One of the things I really thought was a standout in this is they do have a different actor for Owen, the main character, when he's really young, when he's just starting grade 7. There's a different actor. Sure. But then they transition halfway through high school. Justice Smith takes over the role. And I thought, as far as makeup, wardrobe, lighting, and the actors themselves, I thought they did a fantastic job of really believably going from teenagers to middle 20s. I thought that, like, better than a lot of other movies where, you know, one actor is portraying all these different ages throughout the movie. I thought they did a really, really good job. It was really believable, to the point that when we saw the teenage version of Owen, I was like, is that Justice Smith? Like, he was so good, because he's almost 30 now, I think. So I'm like, you know, playing like 15 years old, and I'm like, that can't be him, but it was.
Right.
I was like, wow, that was really impressively done. So I will say, this is not going to be a movie for absolutely everyone. It's not even really directed at me. I don't have a lot of life experience that parallels these characters. So I've seen people reacting to this movie who are like, oh, this like really got to me. It like really emotionally affected some people because it really speaks to their sort of life experience. It is this idea of completely not fitting in, of feeling like if there's not something wrong with me, there's something wrong with the entire world. You know, it's
right.
that sense of nothing fits, time doesn't feel right, interactions don't feel right, the whole world feels wrong to me. And so it's, you know, a little bit autobiographical for the writer director in that sense. But they approached it as dreamlike. Everything is dreamlike in this movie. You jump around in time. The characters speak directly to camera. There are things on screen that aren't really there, or are they there? And, you know, it's all playing with that. Everything is a dreamlike state. So I will say, even if it emotionally doesn't grab you whatsoever, don't watch this movie if you're sleepy, because I watched this movie while I was a bit sleepy, and I fell asleep because it is very, very like not to the. I'm not. That's not a critique of the movie. I'm just saying, like, it is. Right. It's very slow. It's very quiet. It's very deliberately paced. It puts you in that little bit of a dreamy, trance-like state, and all of that is intentional, and it's very effective at that. It's just, if you already went in quite tired and sleepy, you might fall asleep in this movie, as I did. But yeah, I went back and finished it. And yeah, I found it quite impressive. I didn't love like the last 5 minutes. They went a bit too much of a time jump and went into the surrealism, as many movies do at the very, very end, and that they couldn't quite pull off. But it was necessary for the sort of the narrative of the story. Bridget Lundy Payne is giving a very, very affectated performance in this, which is obviously intentional. But the line delivery, like every single sentence is delivered with the same cadence, the same pace. That's part of doing that almost hypnotic trance-like thing that this movie puts you into. But I found it a little bit tiresome by the end, like every single sentence with the exact same delivery, which is obviously, like I say, intentional. It's not like I'm critiquing the acting as though it wasn't an obviously intentional choice, but by the end I found it a little bit grating. But yeah, the whole, like, if you're talking the narrative of this story, it's these two high school kids, a couple of years apart. The girl in this story is older than the boy, but both of them obviously misfits, outcasts, and they just sort of bond over this TV show, which is like this very 80s TV show called The Pink Opaque, which gets said a few too many times.
Oh, I think I know about this, and they can't tell if they were part of the show. That's or not, right, or something like that. Okay, yeah, I did hear about this.
Start movie. To believe that like they are actually the characters in the show that they're watching, or that they say the line outright. It's the most overt thing in the entire movie, where they just say sometimes the show feels more real than real life. Right. And that's pretty much the tagline of this movie. So yeah, like I say, it's all dreamlike, it's all surreal. You're not really sure what's real, what's not. Things are kept vague and all that. And so I liked this movie overall, but it's not gonna wow you. There's no action. There's like, it's all just talking. It's all just slow. It's very deliberate. It's very hypnotic and trance-like. And I don't really have that emotional background that these characters go through. So I wasn't like super connecting with the characters, but I really appreciate and respect what this movie did. It has something to say, and I like movies that do that.
I'm surprised about the pacing, I'll be honest with you, because when I saw whatever review or preview or whatever I saw, I got the impression, at least in my mind, that this was going to be more of like a psychological thriller.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I even saw it like marked as horror in some places, and I'm like, it absolutely is not. It's neither of those things. It's not a thriller. It's not a horror. It's a tone piece. It really is a tone piece. I mean, the plot is almost nothing. That's not the point of this movie. That's, again, not a criticism of it. It's that is absolutely not the point. This is all about vibes. This is a movie about vibes and getting into that hypnotic trance-like state.
Right. Okay, so I saw, of course, you guys, last time I was here, we talked about Prometheus,
We did.
which continues to be a terrible movie, and the more I think about it, the more terrible it gets.
Oh, no.
I would like somebody to explain to me,
Yep.
in layman's terms,
Okay.
in a engineering, functional way,
Mm.
why they have the hologram, like this is the last person who sat in this seat, and this is what they were doing. Here's
Right.
a hologram of them.
Yeah.
Why? Why is there a hologram of people running down the hallway and getting
Yeah.
their head chopped off in doors? Why does that exist?
Mm.
Why? What functional purpose would there be?
I mean, it's a
Before
facility.
that.
You just have to assume everything is being recorded, and they record it as holograms. And
Sure, okay, that's fine. Maybe they do that, but
Sure.
why would you have access to that in literally every room of the place?
uh-huh.
Like that would be like some sort of security thing or backup thing or
Sure.
something that you would go and see, not just like I accidentally pressed a button on a wall in a hallway.
Yeah.
And now here's a life-size hologram of people running for their lives.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's a thing that we
It's
need.
the last 2 minutes.
Maybe
of what
that's
took
why they
place.
couldn't create good life. Maybe that's why they are terrible engineers and they're all freaking dead.
I mean,
or
they
whatever
created
they are.
us. Look at that result, you know?
That was accidental.
There's
Look
your
at them.
evidence.
They didn't know what they were doing. The
Nope.
dude just dissolved into
They
the water.
didn't know what they
and
were doing the
poof.
whole time. That's what we can draw from that.
I'll tell you to draw from that. That Ridley Scott, who's made some great movies,
Sure has.
wanted to advance the plot and said, well, maybe this is how it happens. And everybody's like, well, we can't say no to him because he's Ridley Scott.
They wanted
and
to
now
do
we
a
have to make this thing.
A show not tell, so they made it holograms. That's the easier explanation.
That was definitely telling. In like every single sense of the word, it is telling. That's all it was. It's like,
But with
I need
visuals.
to tell you this thing
That's right.
in order for this story to make sense. And then they just have David, or whatever his name was,
Mhm.
go, they must have, and then,
I mean,
like,
hey,
oh, hey, this looks like or one of the other guys go, this looks like a military outpost where they were creating biological weapons. Really?
yeah.
Really?
I mean, it could have been a freeze frame and text on screen if it was M. Night Shyamalan.
Might as well
so,
be.
you know.
Anyways, Prometheus sucks.
Okay.
Okay?
We already
Continues to
covered that
suck.
one. Already covered that one.
So I watch Alien Covenant, which is
Okay.
much better. And because
Okay.
the plot is walk up a hill, get infected with aliens, walk back down the hill, die. That's the entire plot of the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you very much. That's what we need
Well, like
in
I
the
say,
Alien movie.
he really didn't care about the aliens by this point, so it's all
You know.
about David.
You know, just here we go. We're
Mhm.
gonna go up the hill, then we're gonna come back down the hill, and then we're all gonna die. It's yeah, and it's like I don't understand how we can have like, and this happens in Star Wars. It happens in like way too many movies
Mhm.
where they land on the planet. They're like, oh, there's no life. Oh, there's or there's some, you know, there's just basic life forms here, and then they walk 20 feet from where they landed.
Yes.
And there's a massive installation, you know, of buildings.
Yup.
There's dead bodies
They're all
everywhere.
stone. They're all
There's,
turned to stone.
I don't care what they're turned to. Why would they? Who cares?
Yes.
You can't scan a planet? I think we
Not
can
like
do that
that.
right now. We're scanning the bottom of the frickin' ocean, and they're like, look at what we discovered this new element on this planet that's 1,000,000 miles away. We doing that right now with the James Webb telescope. Don't tell me you can't scan the planet and say, hey, look, this looks man-made or, you know, intelligently
But this wasn't
created.
their mission, Tom. This was like a side
don't care
event.
what
They got
What do
taken
you mean
off
it's not
track.
their mission? They're taken off.
Yeah.
They're going to go to a planet
They were a
that they've never been to before, and they're not going to
colonization
scan
ship.
it before they land.
They
This whole
weren't
thing
an,
is dumb.
they weren't an exploratory
Anyways,
ship.
much better movie because everybody dies, which I
Okay.
liked.
So I'm
I'm
going to give my prediction now. We'll see if it comes true. At some point, you will end up seeing Alien Romulus, and
I will.
I am predicting that you will like that one. We'll see if my prediction turns out correct or not.
Well, I liked Alien. I liked Aliens, obviously, even though it's a completely different movie. I don't consider them to even be, I mean, they're not even really the same genre, to be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned. Alien 3 or whatever it was with Sigourney Weaver, where that one is, it's hard
It's bad.
to watch.
Alien Cubed is not great.
Yeah. And then what other aliens? There was Alien versus
Resurrection.
Predator, right?
Yeah, there's Resurrection, the fourth one.
Which was Resurrection? What happened in that one?
I mean,
we don't need to talk about this.
Decades later, they clone her, bring her back because she had the alien queen DNA inside her. So they're bringing all that back, and you end up with the hybrid human xenomorph thingy that got sucked through a pinhole.
That's the one I was thinking was
through a pinhole
Alien
into space.
3. That's Alien 4. Alien 3 was a dog one.
Yes.
I remember that.
With
I
the
got
horrible
that movie sucked
CGI.
simply because
horrible
they.
CGI.
Well, I mean, it was a product.
It
of
was
its
a
times,
product
but
of its time.
The real problem was they killed Newton.
They sure did. Off screen, in between
off
movies.
screen.
Not dissimilar from Covenant, where the main character of Prometheus died off screen.
Yeah, there she is.
Yep.
So we killed her. Couldn't get her back for this movie.
At least David was there.
Yeah.
It's all that matters.
They spent all their money on Michael Fassbender, and he's worth it. He's He's great. Don't get me wrong. But come on. Anyways, so I also finished watching last night Twisted Metal.
All right.
On Peacock.
You're ahead of me then. I never finished that series.
Well, okay, they definitely spent on the last episode a lot of money on a very specific special effect, which worked very well.
Nice.
Which I really very much liked.
Cool.
And I don't know if I guess it doesn't matter. But the clown guy, right, in the video game,
Sweet
if I
Tooth.
remember correctly, Sweet Tooth, his head's on fire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they did that. They did the head on fire thing.
Nice.
Made no dang sense why this guy is not horribly disfigured.
There are many things in that show that didn't make sense, and I didn't even finish it.
Yeah, but it did look very cool.
That was the point. Definitely that was the point.
I will give them that. And honestly, Sweet Tooth ends up being by far my favorite character in this entire thing. And he makes his character arc makes the most sense out of everybody by far.
That wouldn't be the guess, but all right.
So, so overall the series deserves to be canceled. And it really does. There's no reason to continue this thing any further than it's already been. It was a nice I think that it could be. I think it could have been good. I think it could have been interesting. The problem with, historically, with adaptations of other works is there's this fine line. It's not even a fine line. There's this line between telling a good story and fan service, and the fan service almost always gets you in trouble.
It's like Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where everyone was like, you have to have every character from the roster in this movie. So they did, which was absolutely pointless and stupid.
It was so dumb. I mean, it was bad enough that they made what's-his-name be Raiden. I'm like, what? I'm the god of thunder.
Oh, no, Christophe Lambert in the first one, he was fun. They had to recast Raiden in Mortal Kombat Annihilation because he wouldn't come back. And rightly so. That was the right decision.
Yes, that movie sucked. I saw both of them in the theater. So, but anyways, so the fan service gets you in trouble here, and they definitely did try to introduce. And I don't know any of the characters really because I only played the game a couple times when I was young, and I haven't thought of it since. So there is no real reason to have fan service in this show. There's just pick a couple
for all
of characters.
Those Twisted Metal fans out there. It's for them.
Both of them.
That's right.
So they really should have just focused on telling a really good story with a couple of the characters. Yeah. And then have some of the other characters, just like they do kind of they do this better in Marvel and Star Wars, where they they tell a story about a couple of characters and then you'll see somebody in the background. There'll be a little cameo of somebody walking through. You're like, oh, that's so-and-so. Yeah. Or something like that. And,
not that we can expect any other shows to be up to this level, but like Arcane, League of Legends did, where, just completely, you took some characters, took their names, but completely aside from anything to do with the game.
Right. Well, I mean, League of Legends doesn't really have a plot anyway,
That's right.
as far as I understand. So this could have been in the same vein. I know that everybody's got a backstory in there, but who cares? Just tell a good story. But instead, they're like, oh, we're going to have the big fight at the end with we're going to be in a kind of arena, I guess the way that Twisted Metal
Demolition Derby.
And everybody will be there for whatever reason. We'll just kind of shoehorn them all in there, even though the truck people said we were not going to take you in. We're only going to drop you off nearby. And all of a sudden they were still there as well. They followed them in. I'm like, why are you people here? So there was it could have been good. It just, the writing was terrible.
Okay. Well, that's too bad.
Peacock continues to be the worst service I've ever used. Okay,
You expected it to get better within a couple of weeks?
Well, I'll be honest with you that I told you guys, I said, hey, I clicked on the For You, and it was a show I was watching, and instead of I think it was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I also finished, instead of the episode where it showed me this is the next episode, instead of showing that, it showed me the first episode, and I had to go find it. Well, I was like, maybe I just did it that one time. Maybe it was something. Maybe I did something. Maybe I clicked it wrong. No. Maybe I clicked it too fast or something.
That's a strange.
It did a couple more times.
Granting of assumption to make.
And I know. But every time it did it, if I clicked back out and then went right back to the same thing I was at and then clicked in again, it would show me the correct episode. I'm like, okay, that's just dumb. But more egregious than that, is I was watching Twisted Metal. And then I took a break from it, watched a bunch of other stuff, and when I came back, it was like, I remember you were watching the show. I don't exactly remember what episode you ended up on, though. So here's one that you've definitely seen before, but we're going to start it over from the beginning. And if you go into the history, it doesn't even show that I watched that episode yet. I definitely had. Yeah. So it doesn't even remember your place within a series. How is anybody paying for this service? How does NBC expect people to want to pay for this service when it can't do the most basic things correct? Like put a bookmark in something. Remember where I left off. I don't mind if you rewind a few seconds or even a few minutes. Like, okay, well, he clicked off and now he's clicking back in. It rewinds a little bit. Okay, I'll give you that. That kind of helps me remember anyways. But I certainly expect you to be on the correct episode and near the second where I left off. It's so bad.
I don't know why you thought it would get better. Anyway, let's crack on. We got lots to get to now.
All right, this is an AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask us by emailing us a question at avrant.com. You go to the website, find our episodes, our show notes, our audio, the Flickr album so you can follow along with the pictures we'll talk about, all the links, everything else.
That's right. So,
avrant.com. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant. Contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. His socials is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com.
That's us.
That I sometimes do I'm looking at it right now. It looks like a bunch of ads. That's all it is ads.
Sure.
Yeah. We want to thank our listeners of the week. Become a listener of the week. Support the podcast in some way. Go to avrant.com. Click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. Send us a PayPal donation. Nobody's done that in the last 2 weeks. So I will skip over.
Didn't miss anybody last week then.
Did not. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast. We have it's a service every month. They'll take some money from you. It's like a subscription. You're like subscribing to the podcast. Right. It's a minimum of $1 for $1 a month. $12 a year. You become a patron, where you will get no additional benefits other than doing that, because we don't do that.
Purely voluntary.
I should make Rob do all the interviews and put them underneath Patreon or something.
I don't have time for that nonsense.
No one's got time for that. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast. 134 patrons, including Jason. Jason says he's listened to all 900 plus episodes right from the beginning. So thank you to all of our 134 patrons, including Jason.
That is true. Yeah. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast. That is the place you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 134 patrons over there. Jason, thank you for being one of them and being a listener for so very, very long.
So we just got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through my tooth extraction.
Sure, that was the only major news of this past week.
That happened in the last 2 weeks.
No other things in the political arena taking over the headlines yet again.
Don't be ridiculous. The world is a very sane and calm place, and it's going to stay that way forever. We have already entered the Star Trek era. Star Trek era, where
in a way, it seems like Star Trek's predictions of what the middle of the 21st century was going to be like is about correct. Yeah, it seems like
didn't they say the eugenics war was going to happen?
Oh yes,
yeah,
I think
that's
that. I mean, that hasn't
close
happened
to that
yet,
one. So looking forward to that.
A World War III and approximately 38% of the entire world's population getting destroyed before we do any, and it actually takes the arrival of the Vulcans to bring us together. I mean, all of that sounds pretty reasonable. Oh, Lordy.
I don't think the Vulcans would come. I think they'd just get here and go, ugh.
Yeah.
Guess what? They would have scanners from space. And they would scan and go, look at those idiots.
Detected our
We're
first
not going
warp
down
drive,
there.
and they're like, hey, maybe if we give them replicators, they'll stop fighting each other over resources. And that's how we got Star Trek.
Nope. That's not what would happen.
That's probably true.
The rich would take
Somebody
the replicators and
control
not let
the
the poor have them.
That's right.
It's all that. Elon Musk would be sitting there with his replicator, replicating Cybertrucks, and we would just have Cybertrucks everywhere.
How easy it would be to use a replicator to make more replicators, which, yeah.
That's what somebody told me one time. If you have a lathe, you can make a lathe with a lathe. Maybe that's what the replicators are, Rob. Just lathes. You ever thought of that?
Would be easier to understand.
Notes of gratitude from Mike Derek, who wanted to say thanks for explaining why the thin acoustic panels made from slats of wood that he's seen at Costco would not be a good use of his limited funds. He had a look at the DIY panels from Acoustimac, along with Andrew's post over at AV Gadgets about using fence lattice panels as decoration on the face of traditional panels.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife like those suggestions, and he figures he can afford to make 4 panels that way, so he's going to go for it.
Yeah,
Gurinder's taken all in good fun, but he couldn't believe Tom criticizing Prometheus so harshly. Sucks. The more you think about it, the more it sucks. It sucks.
You're allowed to like it.
You can still like it.
Mm-hmm.
You can still love the lore. You can love the info dump. You know, some people like reading the terms and conditions. They get joy from that.
But all right.
But, you know, some people don't want to, like, watch a dramatic reenactment of, you know, a battle of World War II. They want to just read the Wikipedia page. Mm-hmm. They just like to read the facts. They just want somebody to tell them tell them the whole thing and not actually see the emotion in how it, Those people can love this movie. Anyways, that was actually the movie that motivated him, Gurinder, partially to renovate his, partially renovate his basement theater area, building a wall and a door, redoing the HVAC and ceiling, blacking out the now enclosed room, and setting everything up again basically from scratch. Then again, if he hadn't seen Prometheus, maybe his life would have been a little simpler. I mean, are you making a safe room or something to stay away from?
Yeah, just an enclosed theater. Yeah.
He's worried about David Fassbender coming down there and doing experiments on them. Don't take a drink from David Fassbender is the moral of Prometheus.
I wonder if the last name of that android was Fassbender. That would be funny.
Mohsen, Karl, who says we might have glossed over the Apple news from last week a bit, but since he was behind on news coverage, he actually heard it from us about how the Apple Watch Ultra and AirPods Max weren't really changing any at all yet, except for new color options. We saved him some money. There's even Apple fans now in my social media feeds going, this some BS.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're just releasing stuff other people have had for years. I'm like, welcome to like 10 years ago when I started saying that. Stefan, who says he's been listening to us to 8 years now and never missed an episode. He said the secret word that lets us know that is true.
That's right.
He's glad we stuck with our format. He used to rank the UK's AV Forums podcast as his number 1 favorite, with us as number 2, but he doesn't like how they've changed their format. Get off my lawn. So now we're number 1 for him. Hooray. So let's go through those names again.
Sure.
Mike, Derek, Gurinder, Mohsen, Karl, and Stefan. Thank you for thanking us.
I'll say those names one more time. Mike, Derek, Gurinder, Mohsen, Karl, and Stefan. Thank you all very much for sending in those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We definitely appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
In the news, Apple's AirPods Pro 2 have been approved by the FDA as over-the-counter clinical grade hearing aids for mild to moderate hearing loss. Yep. Okay, this is literally the first time I've heard them talking about this might happen. This is the first time I've heard that it has actually happened.
That's why it is news. Yes.
Yeah, I've done no research into this whatsoever.
Okay.
So I am going to give you my off-the-cuff opinion of this after I finish reading this.
We would expect nothing less.
So I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. And if I am, I will correct myself and I will accept the fact that I am wrong. But this will be my off-the-cuff reaction. So not even a week after Apple shared their intention to upgrade their AirPods Pro 2 via software at their iPhone 16 event, or what other people like to call it, 15 with another color. The FDA approval has arrived after completing a 118-person clinical study that demonstrated similar perceived benefits for people using self-fit AirPods Pro 2 as compared to professionally fit device, a professionally fit device for mild to moderate hearing loss. The new software update includes a simple hearing test within Apple's Health app that has you tap on the screen in response to a series of varied test tones played through the AirPods Pro 2 to create personalized audio profile, along with all of the hearing aid specific features offered by iPhones and iPads. First of all, this little hearing test thing, I have a stack of in-ear earbuds and earpods and all these other things that have this feature within the app, and it's used to create a custom EQ for yourself. So this is not, they didn't suddenly invent this, like this is some sort of amazing thing.
They're just saying though that in the clinical trial, like this was good enough for the FDA to approve it as clinical grade hearing aids. So this is
a terrible idea.
The method.
Okay,
this is an idea,
awful idea, and this is why. First of all, there's all sorts of laws on the books right now for not being able to wear in-ear.
That's right. Particularly while driving
and operating any sort of motor vehicle. This includes a bicycle, by the way. Yep. Bicycles are considered motor vehicles when you are cycling on the road, which if you're an adult and you're cycling, you should be on the road. So you are not allowed to wear earphones.
That's right.
In both of your ears. The law does specifically say, here in Florida at least, that, can you tell I've done a little research on this, that you can wear an earphone as long as the other ear is completely open.
Okay.
And
that isn't the law everywhere, so don't take that for just granted.
That's why I said Florida.
Universal.
So it could be stricter or less strict where you are. But here in Florida, as long as you have one ear open, then you can wear an earpod in the other ear. Or if you can somehow set it up so that one ear doesn't get any music or whatever, and the other ear does, you can wear two in there, but good luck at convincing a cop of that. So around here, what they do is they wear these bone conduction earphones, or the ones that don't go in your ear, in order to get around the law. Now, I want to be very specific here. Just because something isn't specifically illegal does not make it legal. At least as far as you're concerned as a citizen. If you're a lawyer, I'm sure you can make some sort of argument or whatever, and then you can go represent yourself or have one of your friends represent you if you get a ticket. But for the rest of us, if the cop pulls you over and you say, "Oh, well, these aren't in my ear, so it isn't technically," if you get a cop, he might say, or she might say, "All right, well, you still shouldn't wear them," and the next person you run into might not be so nice, or they might be like, it's earphones, it's playing music, here's your ticket, you can fight it. So as far as I'm concerned, that is a reason not to wear headphones when you're driving or operating a bicycle or any of the other things that are considered operating on a road. But now we're going to have people who are going to use this as some sort of, hey, it's a hearing aid, it's not whatever, and running around with earpods in constantly. And who knows, are they going to be using it the way that they're supposed to be using it as a hearing aid, or are they going to be like, it's in here as a hearing aid, I can stop my music whenever I want, so therefore I'm playing music right now. I just think that personally, hearing aids should be hearing aids. Headphones should be headphones, and making the two look exactly the same is only going to cause problems.
That's a little bit tricky. Yeah, I mean the counterpoint is there are many people with either diagnosed or undiagnosed hearing loss. The cost of traditional hearing aids, I agree, even for mild to moderate, is prohibitive.
My dad just got hearing aids, and he was like, when he was talking about getting them, I was like, yeah, my friend just got his hearing aid eaten by his dog. He was out $5,000.
Yeah.
he's like, $5,000. They can't possibly cost that much.
Yes,
he comes
they
back
can.
and goes, it was $5,000.
I mean, I've easily seen $7,000 each for not typically for mild to moderate, but for more severe.
Yes.
And these are not for anything more severe than mild to moderate. That is what the FDA approval is. But I mean, a lot of the other over-the-counter hearing aids that you can get that you don't need any prescription for, universal fit, they suck. Like they're really unpleasant to listen to. The tonal balance is way off. They're not very adjustable. Many people find that they have like 3 different volume levels, and the first one is too quiet, the second one's way too loud, and there's nothing in between. Like there's lots of very valid criticisms when it comes to hearing aids for people who, either just getting the prescription is too much of a hurdle, or maybe they have one, but the price of the hearing aids themselves is too much, or the available over-the-counter ones are junk. All of those are valid criticisms that this can stand in for, because by all accounts, the reviews on the AirPods Pro 2, do I think they're the very best headphones to ever exist? No, I don't,
they don't have to be, though.
They are way better than a lot of hearing aids sound, and so yeah.
When I complain about this, as I just did, I completely agree with everything Rob just said. My solution, or my suggestion, I guess, would be that the AirPods that are being used as a hearing aid need to be distinctive from regular AirPods. Yeah. That would be the only thing.
That could be as simple as a color that's unique to the hearing aid version of it. Yeah.
Because especially here in the United States, where medical care and everything else is super inflated for various and sundry reasons that I don't fully understand or couldn't speak to with any authority. Having a cheaper option out there, I think, makes a ton of sense. And if I'm, other than the benefit of cheaper hearing aids and blah blah blah, and reaching more people and all of that, it will also stop all the boomers from complaining about kids with their headphones in their ears constantly, because now they'll have headphones in their ears constantly.
My main criticism is that if you are wearing both of them at the same time and you actually need them for the purpose of hearing aids, the battery lasts 3.5 hours. Ugh. So, that, I mean, you got the little charging case in that, but yeah.
How, Apple, do you have an earbud that only lasts 3.5 hours?
Yeah.
I don't own an earbud with the little wand on it or without the wand on it that doesn't last at least 7 hours.
Right.
I don't own one that doesn't last at least 7 hours. They are all 7 plus, 8 plus, 9 hours. No, 9's a little unusual. 8.5 is pretty usual, though. I can't imagine there needing to be one that only goes 3 hours. Can your battery
there's another side, which is like a lot of hearing aids, that's all they do, hearing aids. People end up worsening their hearing by wearing their hearing aid all the time, because it amplifies everything. It's kind of indiscriminate, a lot of hearing aids are, and they're just amplifying everything, and you end up causing yourself even more hearing loss as you continue to wear them. I mean, the AirPods Pro 2, with all of their active noise cancellation, and like they're getting a lot better with the letting through specific sounds, specifically voices is what they're usually going for, or emergency things like sirens. They allow you to hear that, but everything else, not that it's completely dead silent, but greatly reduced. So I mean, this could actually serve, both sides of it, helping to preserve the hearing that you do have, and then acting as a hearing aid fairly intelligently. So yeah, there's a give and take on this for sure.
Yeah.
It's not that things can't be adjusted, right? Things can be adjusted as we go along. So I don't think that Apple is like evil for trying to make this a function of one of their products. I think they were quite benevolent in their goal of what they're doing.
Is it benevolent, or are they just trying to make themselves give people a reason to still buy their stupid headphones, which aren't as good as like
they were selling good anyway? So no,
they were,
I
but
think
that's
this was
the name.
A mostly on the level attempt. But yeah, some adjustment probably needs to be made. But that is possible. That can be done.
All right. Sony's PS5 Pro console was officially announced last week. You've probably seen the news already. I did not. But since we neglected to cover it last week, we'll hit the highlights. It's $700. It doesn't come with an optical disk drive. It's the exact same CPU, but the GPU is roughly twice as powerful, which basically just means you no longer have to choose between performance mode, which is a higher frame rate but downgraded graphics, and fidelity mode, ray tracing and more graphical detail but lower frame rates, which is going to excite some people a lot. It comes with a 2 terabyte solid-state drive built in, and you can still add more storage via the NVMe solid state drives.
M.2 drive. Yeah, solid state drive.
The controller hasn't changed at all. The console itself pretty much all looks the same. Still the white fin design, but it has 3 black gills on each side now, and it's taller than the PS5 Slim. It's the same width and depth as the Slim, though, so that the same detachable $80 disk drive works with both the Slim and the Pro.
Yeah.
The base for standing the console vertically costs $30 extra. It comes with some little plastic feet for laying it horizontal. All right, whatever. The PS5 Pro Game Boost should help almost all games run more smoothly, but PS5 Pro Enhanced games will still require developer support. And pre-orders start September 26th, which is a little over a week and a half away.
Yeah.
Launches November 7th. Well, there you go.
So that's the PS5 Pro. More expensive than a lot of people were thinking it was going to be, and not coming with a disk drive out of the box for that $700 price point.
That GPU upgrade is huge. I think that's
what it is, and the doubling of the storage space on the inside. I mean, that's what it's all about. So the idea is, you know what? There's very little in the targeting of 120 frames per second. We were getting to the point where it was like, well, if you want the ray tracing on and the greater, graphic fidelity, you had to drop it down to 30 frames per second on the PlayStation 5. If you wanted to keep it at a rock solid 60 frames per second, you usually had to turn off at least some of the ray tracing and some of the graphical fidelity. The other thing that they mention in here is they're doing like a quote-unquote AI algorithmic upscaling built right into the GPU, very similar to NVIDIA's DLSS, or AMD has a similar technology. The idea is that it's rendering it at like 1080p, but then it's upscaling it inside the GPU before it's sent out to 4K resolution, and that allows you to more easily boost the frame rate as well. So DLSS on the NVIDIA graphics cards has been really, really successful on that front. So there's no reason to expect why. It's all AMD-based stuff inside of the PS5, so no reason to expect that it couldn't be just as good. That's what it's all about, but... I mean, it's not as though there's going to be any PS5 Pro exclusive games. That is absolutely not something they're going to do. Any games that are coming out for this generation will still play on the PS5. And honestly, industry-wide for like games that are across both consoles, Microsoft's and Sony's, we are massively being held back by that Series S unit now, because having to say that all the games that come out across both platforms still have to run on that stupid Xbox Series S that never should have existed, but they were just too afraid over there at Microsoft to say that there was an actual generational break, and they wanted to be like, it's basically an Xbox One, and the Xbox One can still run everything for the next several years. So yeah, we're just massively being held back by that at this point. So Sony exclusive games are pretty much the only ones that are really going to make use of the PS5 Pro.
All right. Despite all the CDA and other news coverage we did last week across 2 episodes, none of which I listened to, even though Rob told me to.
That's right.
We didn't spend any time covering the many ultra-short throw projectors that were on display. We still aren't going to go through them.
No,
but
there's too many.
Vividstorm and AWOL Vision both had full ultra-short throw cabinets with motorized drawers for the projector and motorized roll-up screens. At the push of a button, the screen and projector are concealed and ready to deploy whenever you want to use the display. Vividstorm's cabinet is called the Dune.
I mean, that's the name they gave it. I can't help it.
I don't know.
Tom's giving me the side eye like I'm the one who named the darn thing.
I'm not saying it was you that named it, but the jokes kind of write themselves.
They sure
after that popcorn thing. $10,000 for the 100-inch screen version and $12,000 for a 120-inch.
Not cheap, but it's CDS.
I don't understand why that went up $2,000.
Bigger
Seems
screen.
like a lot. I understand, but that's
wider wooden cabinet, bigger screen concealed within it. Yeah.
Does not come with a projector, and you need to contact Vividstorm before ordering to make sure you get the correct drawer to fit the ultra short throw projector you intend to use.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 available wood color options. Let me get this straight. So, it only fits the projector that you are planning on using.
It's a motorized drawer, so it has to be the correct height and distance from the screen.
I understand that. So you end up with now being stuck with that same projector, or you have to try and match going forward your new projector to your current drawer.
Well, it is like a metal frame inside of the drawer, so I do believe that is replaceable. But yeah, you have to have the correct metal frame inside of that motorized drawer.
There are 3 available wood color options. AWOL's, that's what I'm going to call it, AWOL Vision's version is called the Vanish. That one's a much better name. With only one black finish option, also 100 inch or 120 inch size options, and AWOL's does come with their triple laser 4K DLP projector as part of the package. 15 grand for 100 inches, 16 grand for the 120C.
But it's not the fancy wood, Tom. That's the difference. It's not the fancy wood of the VividStorm version.
Comments: Infinite Gary, Rob and Lee weren't totally sure how the Panasonic sub-brand Technics, which is how I pronounce it, is supposed to be pronounced. Gary's dad actually worked for them in the 80s, and Gary still has one of their SH8040 audio timers working and in use. Audio timers.
It's for cassettes. It's for when you're re-recording cassettes, it gets the timing correct.
All right. So you heard it said out loud many times, and it was always Techniques. So we've been saying it wrong. I've been saying it wrong my whole life.
Me too.
Technics.
Yeah.
Techniques.
I have heard it pronounced that way. That's not totally foreign to me or anything like that.
No. We were talking a little bit about this before the podcast, but yes, it's I understand people getting, being specific about how they want something pronounced. I was talking to a rep the other day, and Denon is not pronounced Denon. It's pronounced Denon or whatever.
I mean, it used to be, but they've changed it now. They're like, now it is officially Denon. But yeah, I mean, it was a compound word in Japanese. It was Denki Onkyo, which is good sound. So it was Den-on. Yeah, Denon.
Yeah. So, but this rep still pronounces it that way,
right? And
it reminds me that there are, ways that we pronounce things that are just flat out wrong. And if you really want to be particular about how something is pronounced, you have to spell it phonetically, and sometimes do the weird capitalization thing that lets you know that, hey, this is where the emphasis of the word is supposed to be. And if you don't do that, if you just spell it in a way that makes sense to you, which is fine. And people all agree to say it a way that doesn't make sense to you. You're not a lot, But I mean, it's nice to know the proper.
We're some of the only people who called the company Oppo, and that was because at one point, because I was hearing everybody else call them Oppo, and that's not like I can blame anybody. You look at OPPO, is it Oppo? Is it Oppo? Who really knows? I at that time, Twitter wasn't a horrible cesspool, and you could actually talk to people. And so I reached out to Oppo on Twitter, and they're like, yeah, we don't really care if you say it Oppo or Oppo, but we always say Oppo around here. So I was like, okay, I'll say Oppo. And it was as simple as that. But we're the only ones anymore who still say Oppo.
For me, it was Oppo because we were introduced to them from the reps.
There you go.
We saw them at a trade show, and they were like, "Hey, we're Oppo." We're like, "Hey, Oppo," and that's how we said it.
Right.
Shawn noticed that the 100-inch Hisense U7N model is on sale for $2,200 these days, being the U7 series, and that the U8 isn't the very brightest, but it still has full array local dimming as a 100-inch TV for $2,200.
Yeah,
which is. Let me see here. Let me go back. Let me scroll back up.
Right.
Let me scroll back up to what's... So you can get a 100-inch for 15 grand with a cabinet, or $10,000 just for the cabinet.
That's right. Yeah. Projector in addition to that. Or 1,000 nit, not the 2,000, 4,000 nit type of flagship stuff, but like solidly 1,000 to 1,500 nit full array local dimming. Not the most dimming zones, because it's the U7, not the U8. U8 has more dimming zones, as we would expect, but still
the
pretty
cognitive
solid.
Dissonance people are going to exhibit when I go to their house and they show me their projector screen, and I'm like...
But the Hisense doesn't motorized roll down into a wooden cabinet, It doesn't do that. Just stays as there as a big old flat panel on your wall.
Yeah. Oh, how do you handle this? Nobody ever said when they walked into my house and saw my 83. Is that 83?
You've got an 83 at this point now, an OLED, yeah.
83-inch TV. They never said, "Oh, it doesn't roll down." It doesn't. It just stays up there all the time. They always say, "Oh my God, that's a humongous TV." I'm like, yes, it is. Sit down and let's watch it. If you go with the Costco version, they're throwing in a free extended warranty for 5 years of total coverage. So that seems to be a good way to assuage any fears about Hisense's reliability. Just food for thought. I don't know what Costco's free extended warranty.
Costco is great when it comes to warranty coverage. They're like the best. so yeah. I would feel more comfortable having that that coverage, because it's not like an extended Hisense warranty, it's a Costco warranty. So yeah,
I have heard somebody say that. I saw a video from an old Costco, or he wasn't old, but they worked at Costco for years, and they said that somebody returned a playset.
Right.
Kids playset.
Yep.
Like 16 years after they got it, because they said they didn't need it anymore. So they just got it, and they got all the money back from it 16 years later. Like the audacity to go in there and do that. Like, I don't have it. There's things I buy, I'm like, I can't return this.
This is
it's not their fault. I'm the one that made the mistake. If I return it, they lose money.
This is one of the cases where like the Best Buy version is the U7.6 and the Costco version is the U7.0, but the performance is the same. They're both the U7 series. They just change the number afterwards slightly so they don't have to price match each other, but they're both selling it for $2,200. So yeah, pretty good deal for a 100-inch LCD TV.
Don't tell my wife. I could have got a 100-inch TV for...
Well, you couldn't at the time that you bought it. That thing didn't exist.
All right, questions here. Mike says he continues to love the show, but he's fallen behind by a few months, so he wasn't sure if this might have been asked and answered already. He's looking to mount some acoustic panels on the side walls. He's specifically concerned with first reflection points. Mm-hmm. And when he just sees photos of what other people have done, it's almost always 2 or 3 2-foot by 4-foot panels mounted vertically with very little space between the panels. I don't know what you're looking at.
There's lots of photos of people's home theaters. That's kind of the
with
setup.
Very little space between them. They're all mounted flush to each other. I don't see that. I see like vast amounts of space between the panels.
A little bit, not very little bit, but a little bit of space in between.
But is that just for looks, or is it honestly the optimal way to treat the side wall first reflection? He's thinking there are front 3 speakers, left, center, and right, and then there's dealing with the 3 main seats across. So if you were to put a mirror on the left side wall and then look for a front speaker from each of his 3 seats, he'd find a total of 9 first reflection points, wouldn't he? Probably not. I think a couple of them you would see all 3 speakers in the same.
Possibly, depending on the size of the mirror.
Depending on the size of the room and a bunch of other stuff. I think it's possible, but whatever. In theory, yes. 9 first reflection points, wouldn't he? And then the same thing on the right side wall. Is it critical to have acoustic panel present at all 9 of those locations? What if one of those spots were to fall in the little gap in between panels? And why do most people mount the panels vertically? Would it actually make more sense to mount a single 2 by 4 foot panel horizontally, or is it important to cover more height on each side of wall for some reason? Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. First of all, Floyd Toole doesn't even think that you need to treat first reflection points. Yeah. So let's not. We have our disagreements with that, and we've discussed that.
Well, we think it's a little bit more room dependent, a little bit different between like music listening and movie viewing. But yeah, I mean, like over at Revel, Kevin Vake's also part of that Harmon group. Like he also is more on our side. He's like, the smaller the room and the more you want to be like the signal, the recording you're listening to contains the ambient information, the more you're towards those 2 things, the more you do want to address side reflections. And Tom and I tend to fall more in agreement with that approach. Yeah.
So we don't, first of all, we don't have to be as neurotic as we can sometimes be about these things. If treating one first reflection point is good, treating all of them must be better.
Right.
Not really. Treating the important one gets you most of the way there, if not all of the way there, and the rest of them will kind of work themselves out as far as I'm concerned. Now, so the first reflection point you're really worried about is the strongest one. It's the one of the speaker that's the closest. The further away the speaker is, the less intensity there will be of the sound hitting the wall. And then when it reflects off, it's still getting even less intense by the time it gets to you. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, the delay in the sound will be greater, and therefore your brain will be able to kind of
actually, just like if you want to be really, anal retentive about the definitions of these things, like if you say your front left speaker, the reflection that goes from the front left speaker over to the right side wall and then comes to your right ear, that isn't considered a first reflection, technically speaking. That's like a tangential or a tertiary, or it's not really a second order reflection, because a second reflection would be off of two walls, off of two surfaces. But yeah, that's usually sort of called like a tertiary reflection, because it's like it's the greater distance. There is a first reflection, which is the front left speaker off of the left wall to your left ear. That's the shorter distance. That's the stronger, louder, more immediate reflection in the room. So that's the first reflection on the left-hand side. The center, if everything is symmetrical, your seat is symmetrical, the center is symmetrical within the room, then it is going to have two equal first reflections off of the side walls. So if all we, by that definition, worry about is the front left speaker off the left wall to your left ear and the center speaker to the left wall to your left ear, and it's going to be the same on the right-hand side, like that's where we end up with basically something that's about 4 feet wide is going to cover that. You know, it's going to get both of those off of that left wall. It's going to get both of those on the right wall. That's why you see 2 foot by 4 foot panels, basically covering a 4x4 square, is what a lot of people use there. So yeah, that would cover that.
As far as why do people put them vertically versus horizontally, it is simply aesthetics.
It is purely aesthetics. You absolutely could take a 2 foot by 4 foot horizontally, and that'll get you that 4 foot width. Now, you'd want to make sure that the seats that you care about, everybody's ears is now within a 2 foot vertical span. So that's kind of getting a little bit narrow there. But if all the tweeters and the absorption panel and your ears are all on the same plane, that's gonna totally work fine. But a lot of people find a single 2 foot by 4 foot panel horizontal on the wall just looks strange to them, especially if you do have any sort of decoration on it, diffusion panels or anything like that on the front of it. A lot of people think the looks are just a little bit strange, but functionally that could totally work. You could absolutely do it that way. And as far as having a little bit of a gap between the panels, I mean, if you have a big gap, if you got a 2 foot wide panel and then a 2 foot wide gap and then another 2 foot wide panel, well, that could end up with, maybe the center reflection is going right off of that bare part of the wall, and you essentially don't have that treated anymore. But if you have something like a 2 foot wide panel and then a 8-inch gap and another 2 foot wide panel, if you're thinking about how the sound is reflecting around there, it's going to end up like part of it is bouncing off of that bare wall section, but it's going to hit like the edge of the panel, and it's all kind of going to get either absorbed or diffused off of that edge of that panel like that. So you end up, getting quite a little bit of extra coverage actually by having that gap in there. Anthony Gramani recommends having something like a 6 to 8 inch gap between the panels, so that you don't physically have to treat that area, but you get the benefit of treatment as if you did have something there, just because the sound waves are reflecting in there and hitting edges and hitting sides of the panels and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you want a certain amount of absorption around anyways.
Sure.
And a lot of times what people do is they just like, I'm going to make this many panels and I'm going to place them around.
Mm-hmm.
And, first of all, I'm going to put some in the locations where I want them to be. And then I'm going to place other ones in symmetrical or
again,
evenly
mostly for
spaced.
Aesthetic reasons. Yeah.
Because you want the absorption and you need the absorption, but you don't necessarily need to care about where every single panel is in this room and place it all based on where the speakers are. You kind of just need there to be some absorption against the wall that's going to get some of these reflections up. Mm-hmm. Just straight reflections, not specific reflections, if that makes sense. Mohsen in Australia. As we know, Mohsen already blacked out his theater, treated it quite heavily with absorption panels, and went ahead with an amplifier and pre-pro upgrades that weren't our top recommendations, but he's happy with them. Mm-hmm. It continues to want to upgrade his theater, so he already went ahead and purchased 8 black diffusion panels. Black diffusion panels. Okay, they were approximately
says they're made out of wood.
Okay, I guess whatever. They look like foam from here, but whatever. They are approximately 10 inches square, 2 inches thick. What? That's tiny.
I know.
Wait,
not very big. Not even a
they're
foot
like
square.
This. They're like that. They're like the size of my head. My head's like 10 inches, isn't it?
Well, from top to bottom, probably not from side to side. But
not from side to side. I mean, that would be Charlie Brown, but
right.
Yeah. Top. Just imagine me. That's where are you going? Okay.
Yep.
He mentions that he added some panels to his ceilings. These things?
I don't know. It wasn't clear in his wording.
Anyways, but he has specifically asked if these new diffusion panels need to be positioned at ear level when they're mounted on the walls, or it would be okay to simply mount them above the absorption panels they already had mounted. And he mainly wants to know if he needs even more diffusion panels. What are the guidance? Throw them away. That's my guidance. Burn them.
Return them for your money back. That would be the best guidance.
I think that you deserve to not have that money because you're not listening to us. So I think you should put them in the fireplace and burn them for warmth, and light it with a $100 bill. How about that?
So to explain a little bit further,
why in God's green earth? First of all, I've written articles about diffusion panels.
Yeah.
So many articles about why diffusion panels are absolutely necessary in humongatoid rooms, auditoriums.
I mean, I would still argue necessary, but they can have their place.
Well, you can make a case for them.
You can make a case for them, yeah.
But in small rooms where what you really need is just absorption, to take up any real estate in that room with anything other than absorption is just, I mean, it's counterproductive. It does the opposite of what you need. It doesn't help the sound at all. It's not going to make anything sound better. And you're going to need a million of these things.
So, I mean, he already has a lot of absorption. So I think you're done as far as needing what you need to do acoustically treating your room. But let's talk about what diffusion actually does. Diffusion makes the high frequencies weaker. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's to understand what diffusion does. It makes high frequencies weaker. This notion that it somehow retains the air and the sparkle and the treble and stuff in some way that absorption doesn't do, no. It makes high frequencies weaker than a bare wall. That's what diffusion does. Now, a 2-inch thick, from front to back, diffusion panel is only affecting frequencies from, if I'm being generous, 4,000 hertz up. If I'm being mathematical, about 7,000 hertz up. Those are the only frequencies it's impacting at all. High treble. And what it's doing to those high treble frequencies is making them weaker. It is not spreading them around the room and bringing the treble back. Like if you're feeling like you have over-treated your room with absorption, that you have actually padded your room to the point that it sounds dull and lifeless, people have this notion that adding diffusion is going to bring the life back to the room. It is the opposite. It makes the high treble even weaker than it is now.
I think they think it's like a trampoline for sound. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think they think it hits it and it bounces off and it somehow intensifies. Like it doesn't make any... Like say it all out loud. Like say out loud how you think the science behind the diffuser works, or how you understand the diffuser to work. Well, describe it. The thing to do is to find somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about, like your spouse or your kid or something like that, and say, I'm going to describe. I'm going to listen. I need to talk through this. Can I just explain to you something that you don't care about, and all I need you to do is ask questions that come to you about whether, just make sure, just fact check me here. And then you describe it to them. And if they get to the end, they go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Go back to the drawing board.
Right. So people hear the idea that it's scattering the high frequencies rather than absorbing them. And so if you have a 2-inch thick absorption panel, and you fire some high frequencies at it, and you have a 2-inch thick diffusion panel, like this, where, you're just talking a solid piece of wood here. There's no absorption going on with this wooden, diffuser panels that he's bought. There's just a solid block of wood with some angular shapes cut into it. If you fire the same high frequencies at a 2-inch thick absorber and a 2-inch thick diffusion panel, the absorber will weaken those high frequencies more than this diffusion panel.
Sure.
But what this diffusion panel will do is weaken those high frequencies, just not as much as the absorption panel. So there are the situations where if you have really carefully measured your room, right? Like you've busted out, more sophisticated than Room EQ Wizard, if I'm being honest here. But if you've really, really measured the room, all the decay times, and what you have noticed is that if I fully treat absorption-wise, absorption only, if I fully treat my room absorption-wise, and I'm noticing this, like the high frequencies are decaying a little bit too quickly, if I were to cover the faces of several of my absorption panels, right? The base frequencies are going to wrap around whatever you put on the face of the panel, and they're still going to get absorbed. But the high frequencies, you can target them. If you cover the faces of a bunch of your absorption panels with diffusion, scattering plates instead, like what GIC offers, you can target it so that you're still weakening the high frequencies versus a bare wall, but a little bit less than just the bare face absorption panel. The other thing you could do,
and hear me out,
yeah,
you could just take down some of those absorption panels.
You could take down some of the panels, get some bare walls back, or the other thing you could do is change the fabric that's covering those absorption panels to something like the acoustically transparent suede, which is acoustically transparent through the mid-range and bass, but less acoustically transparent for the treble, so you get more of that treble energy reflecting off of that panel instead of being absorbed into it. So, the only time that I might think of adding diffusion panels like what you've purchased would be if I very carefully measured my room, determined that I do want to weaken the treble frequencies, but slightly less than I have already, then I would actually put the panels that you've purchased on top, like on the face of some of the absorption panels that I have. That is way more involved than anything that you're talking about doing. If you just took these panels and you put them above some of your absorption panels, all you have done is made the treble in your room even weaker than it was before. You've now covered portions of flat reflective wall that weren't covered with anything before. You've now put 2-inch thick diffusion panels, so from 7 kilohertz, 7,000 hertz on up, you've made those frequencies a little weaker than they were before. Almost certainly not what you were intending to do. If you put them on your ceiling, you've done nothing. You've done nothing if you put these diffusion panels on your ceiling. They're not doing anything up there. If there were some ceiling reflections at 7,000 hertz and above, you've made them slightly weaker than they were before. That's all you've done with this. So the only possible deployment would be mounting these on tops of the faces of some of the absorption panels that you already have. But I strongly doubt that if you carefully measure that, that's actually what you need to do in your room. And the much simpler thing, if you're just noticing now with all the absorption that you put into your room, I think it sounds kind of lifeless in here now. It sounds like a padded cell now. Take some panels down. That's all you have to do. You don't need to add diffusion panels.
So this is what I think. I think that he has seen pictures of people's rooms where they have absorption panels and diffusion panels.
Absolutely.
And he thinks that looks cool.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
If this is purely for decoration, I don't mind that because it barely does anything.
Yeah. And in which case, it doesn't matter where you put it. Put it where it makes it aesthetic sense
Absolutely.
for you.
Agreed.
And I cannot, I say this all the time, but I feel like I need to remind people, aesthetics is a perfectly reasonable reason to do anything,
absolutely,
as far as I'm concerned. Or to make a purchase.
Yeah,
people
are
like,
decoration,
oh, well, I bought this car because it's good for the family and it has a bunch of blah, 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 and a bunch of room and seats and this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. You bought it because it has a V8.
Sure.
And you wanted to have a V8. No. I just got that just for these practical reasons. No, you got it because you wanted it and you think it's cool, and that's a good reason to get something. Mm-hmm. You have money, you value this thing for whatever reason. I don't care what the reason is. So you purchased it. That's all you have to say. I value this. Mm-hmm. So if you value the way that diffusion panels look.
Sure.
And you want to have some up there, then knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if you were to come to me and say, by ear, because there's almost no situation by measurement where you would be like from 7,000 hertz and up is the problem. But by ear, I think that 7,000 hertz and up is the problem, and I want to weaken that a little bit. I'm gonna call you a liar because there's nobody who can be in a listening room and be like, you know what the problem with this room is?
7,000
from 7,000 hertz and higher is slightly too strong, and I need to knock it down a teeny little bit, not as much as an absorption panel would, just less than that. That's what's going to make this room perfect. No, you're a liar if that's what. So there's no performance reason to cover parts of your wall that weren't already covered with diffusion panel. But yeah, if it's purely for decoration, knock yourself out as many as you want because it's really not going to do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Jason, first up, Jason wanted to mention that he has used the Dynaboxes as retrofit backer boxes for in-ceiling speakers, both in his 5.2.4 home theater and his friend's theater, who also has a 5.2.4 configuration now, thanks to the addition of in-ceiling speakers with Dynabox backer boxes.
That's right.
That's a lot of words all in one sentence. That was
It was
all
aside.
one sentence.
It was in brackets.
That was all one sentence, Rob.
Yes.
He does this on purpose, guys.
Of course I do.
You have to understand. He's like, let's see if Tom takes a deep breath before this one or not, because he's going for a ride. We mentioned how much we like them in terms of isolation and performance, but we've bemoaned their price tag. He just wanted to say he squarely falls on the side of them being a buy once, cry once situation, and that their purchase price is offset by how much time and labor they save. His shoulder isn't in the greatest shape anymore, so doing work above his head while up on a ladder isn't a trivial thing. The Dynabox boxes were so quick and easy, and then, like we've said, the performance is great once they're installed, so he thinks they justify their price in those ways, just something to consider. Anyways, on to his question.
Oh, I just wanted to comment. I'm on your side. Yeah.
I am too.
Once that money is spent and you've paid off the credit card from the purchase, you kind of forget about it after a few months, and then they're just doing their job, and they were easy to put up there. I mean, literally all you have to cut for them is whatever size hole saw for the speaker itself, because these are flexible and squishy, and you quite literally roll them up, put them up into the hole that you cut in your ceiling, and they balloon themselves back out because they're basically a thick piece of vinyl with some foam inside. So yeah, I do like them. I mean, look, I would love them to be a little bit less expensive so that it was that much easier to recommend, right? For anybody who is using in-ceiling speakers that don't have a dedicated backer box already designed that you can purchase for them. Some people bulk at the price of them being, they're getting up to like $140 each these days, Yeah. So some people bulk at the price because they're getting, say, the Mag 6s on clearance that are like $130 for the pair of speakers, and you're asking me to spend that much per backer box, and of course people are bulking at that a little bit. So I would love if they were a little bit less expensive, but I agree with you. In many situations, I think, given how easy they are to install and how effective they are, you can buy once and cry once and then be done with it.
And to people who are more handy and are like, oh, wow, that's way too expensive for a fraction of that. I can do this, and then I just patch the drywall, and then I just do this and just do this. We are not all you. I have a friend, and I love him. He is one of my best friends, and I adore him. But you go into his house and you talk to him, and he's like, I can basically fix anything.
Sure.
And he can.
Okay.
He has done everything. He's done tile. He's done drywall. He's done framing. He's done
a proper
HVAC,
handyman.
He's a proper handyman. His job is just to go into supermarkets. He subcontracts for some company. I don't know exactly how it works, but he goes into the supermarket. They're like, this door doesn't work. This thing is leaking. This thing doesn't cool. And this is going on over here. And this light is doing that. We don't know what's going on. And he just fixes everything.
Yep.
That's what he does.
Yep.
That's his whole job. Right. Great guy. Great guy. His house is a mess. It is
that sounds
like
about
his
right.
bathroom door doesn't close properly.
Sure.
Right? So don't tell me, for this amount of, I could, for just a fraction of that cost, $140 or whatever it is, $120, I could do all this stuff, and it would be very easy and very quick, and it'll only take me a little bit of time. Yes, but you're not going to. You're going to just leave it all like unfinished drywall and an open hole into your attic because you'll never get around to finishing it. It's fine. I know that you can do it, and I know that it can be done for cheaper, and I know it can be done better. Like, I've known master woodworkers, I've known master electricians, and they'll come into your house and they'll do stuff, and you're like, geez, you did it so fast and it looks so good. And you go to their house and there's just bare wires hanging out of the wall because they don't want to do it at their own house. So spending a little bit of extra money so that you don't have to spend a bunch of time screwing up your own house and then paying somebody else to fix it makes a lot of sense to me.
The other thing love about the Dynabox, just before we leave it, is because it is flexible and it never hardens or anything. It's not like that. You do that thing where here's the place for my speaker. You bust out the hole saw, you cut it up there, and you go, oh, there's a pipe I didn't know about that's above right where I just cut, or a wire or a duct or something like that. Well, this can mold itself around the shape of that pipe because it's just a flexible, thick piece of vinyl, basically. So I like that it has that flexibility too, where sometimes you have the hard ready-made backer box or even the retrofit can, and it turns out, oh, just that tiny little edge of the plastic is now up against the pipe I didn't know was exactly there, and the whole thing is shot.
Yeah. So he's been using an HD Home Run over-the-air network tuner for many years now. He's found it to be a great way to watch over-the-air TV, broadcast TV in any room where he wants to have a TV or via a mobile device. He just needed one antenna and one HD Home Run network TV, tuner box, and then he can use the app on basically any device to watch live broadcasts or DVR recordings. Very convenient. But that was all ATSC 1.0.
HD TV, yes.
That's right. He's considering upgrading to ATSC 3.0, aka NextGen TV, and HD Home Run does offer their 4-tuner HD Home Run Flex 4K unit that includes 2 ATSC 3.0 tuners and 2 ATSC 1.0 tuners. The 2 3.0 tuners can also act as additional 1.0 tuners, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's been reading about how quite a few NextGen TV stations are using encryption now.
Yeah.
And he's pretty sure the HD Home Run Flex TV does not support that. So if he gets it, what happens? Is the encryption really only about restricting DVR recordings? Because he can live with that. He rarely uses the DVR functionality, if he's being honest. But he wouldn't want to be able to...
He would want
to be able to tune into live broadcast. Does the optional encryption block that if the encryption is present? Bottom line, would the HD Home Run Flex 4K be a safe purchase for him, or should he be looking at something else if he wants to fully enjoy Next TV broadcast? Let me just say before you answer this question, I do not understand watching live TV anymore. Just like my parents still do. I go to their house and I'm like, can you pause or can we fast forward through this commercial?
Oh, right,
they're like, oh, it's live.
It's live. No
what?
Fast forwarding.
What? It's what?
Yeah.
It's live? The Peacock app makes you watch commercials, and the other day, and so for a while it was like during the Olympics, it was 60-second commercials constantly. It was driving me nuts. And now that the Olympics are over, those have shortened to 15-second commercials for the most part. Some 30-second commercials, 15-second commercials, that sort of thing. But last night I was watching Twisted Metal, and it was 90-second commercials. What is going on?
Amazon Prime Video is making them longer and longer too now, just as I predicted they would.
So this is sitting through commercials. I don't know how you people do it. You're better people than me. So go on, Ron.
But unfortunately, if you are watching an ATSC 3.0 NextGen TV station that is broadcasting, and they have activated the digital rights management, the encryption on that channel, it is not just the recording side of things. You will not be able to tune into that station if you do not have a tuner that supports the ATSC 3.0 DRM encryption. You have to have that just to watch the channel, and typically the way that it works is you tune your tuner box to the station that you want to watch. It recognizes that it has encryption, and it must go out through an internet connection to get the decryption keys and apply them, and then the station is unlocked and you can view it. And there's some latency to that. There's a delay in that. You can't just channel surf easily across broadcast over-the-air antenna TV anymore. You have to wait for the decryption keys to get downloaded through an internet connection that must be active when you tune to that station. So right on HD Home Run's own website, they even have a message there that talks about how if you tune to an ATSC 3.0 channel with digital rights management encryption, it will not work. And the fallback that they do is they just go to the HDTV ATSC 1.0 version of that channel, because at the moment we don't have any exclusive 3.0 Next Gen TV channels. They all are also broadcasting simultaneously as an HDTV 1.0 version. So that's what it does. It just falls back to the 1.0 version, and that's what would happen if you went with the HD Home Run. So I don't think that's actually the solution you were looking for, unfortunately. At the very least, you wanted to be able to watch, any of those encrypted channels. So you have to get a ATSC 3.0 tuner box that does support the encryption. At the moment, there's basically two. There's one from ADTH that only costs $90, but it is a single tuner. It's just an ATSC 3.0 and 1.0. It can tune into either, but it's a single tuner, so there's no watching one thing while you're recording another or record two programs while watching a previously recorded thing. None of that going on. It's just the one tuner. They have some limited DVR functionality with that ADTH, but of course it is just the one tuner at a time. But yeah, that was the first box that came out that supported the encryption. I think what you'll probably want, though, because it has the nicer interface and it does have the dual tuner option, is the Zapper box. The Zapper box M1 is the one that you can currently buy, and it's $275 for the dual tuner version. If you do want to use the DVR functionality, technically you can set up a manual recording, which is literally like, go to this station at this time and record for this long. It's like the old VCR recording way of programming things, but probably what you want to do is pay for the guide data that gives you a 2-week TV guide, and just like we're used to with any cable box, you highlight the program you want, press record, and it automatically sets for the station and the time and the day and the duration. So it's $30 a year for the TV guide data on the Zapper box, which isn't too bad, paying for that. Zapper box has announced a couple of new boxes, the M2 and the M3. Those are not available yet. You can pre-order those, and the idea behind those is they're more like client boxes. The M2 is a single tuner unit with a lot less power. It's really just there so you can have another box connected to another TV in another room, but still have a tuner in that room. It would mean splitting your antenna signal, because each Zapper box has to have an antenna connection if you're doing it that way. The M3 is strictly a client box. It doesn't have a tuner built in at all. It's just so you can connect to another TV. And the Zapper boxes talk to each other across your network, either Wi-Fi or Ethernet. So they talk to each other, so you can but you need a Zapper box connected to each TV. There's an HDMI output on the back of the Zapper box. So this isn't the same setup as the HD Home Run. You don't have a single tuner that's only connected to the network and then can basically use, any streaming box with the app to watch what's ever on there. No, this is a single box solution. You can either use an SD card that plugs into the side, or you can plug in any USB hard drive, solid state or spinning, and that can be your DVR storage. But you have one of these Zapper boxes connected via HDMI to each TV, and that's why they're bringing out the M2 and the M3 options, so that you don't have to pay for the $275 M1. But that would be the solution I would go for. That handles the decryption. You do have to be connected to the internet for that, and then you get the dual tuners built in with that, and you can record the encrypted channels as well, which that doesn't work across everything, but it does on the Zapper box.
I can't believe it took you that long to answer that question. I was like, I'm never going to make it back in time before he's done. I got up because I wanted to get some more coffee, and I had to go to the bathroom, but then my phone rang right as I stood up. I was like, oh, this is working out. And I had a very confusing conversation with somebody who was trying to call somebody else.
I see. Wrong number. Fun stuff.
Nick is feeling like he's one of the few people who is actually excited for the PS5 Pro, and maybe that will be to his benefit. I think the PS5 Pro makes a lot of sense. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I do miss the optical drive, and I do like having.
You can add it on, just $80 extra, and you can have that optical drive back.
So he had wanted the PS5 when they first came out, but he didn't manage to get in on the initial pre-orders, and then that whole global pandemic thing happened. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I will tell you, watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the final season, with that, at least these things that were filmed during the pandemic, and they were trying to be a little responsible with it and showing people in masks and stuff. At the time, I remember feeling very comforted knowing that they were doing that. And now looking back, I'm like, I don't want to be reminded of the
it's a bit like Glass
anymore.
Onion too, right? Because Glass Onion was very much set in the pandemic as the movie. So it's like this little time capsule now.
Yeah, it is. It is nuts. So anyways, then the whole global pandemic thing happened. The PS5s were basically impossible to buy, except from scalpers charging double or more. And then he just got fed up with the whole thing about a PS4, and he never gotten around to picking up before, and has enjoyed that from 2001 until now. Because by the time the PS5 units were readily available, the PS5 Pro was already being rumored, so he just decided to wait.
Yep.
Well, I cannot believe you'll be the only one in this boat, by the way. This sounds very much like a lot of people.
Maybe.
But, well, now this wait is over, and while he was expecting the price to be $600, he is personally okay with it being $700. And it does have a 2 terabyte storage drive, a solid-state drive for extra game storage after all, and there are a ton of great games for it at heavily discounted prices. So, how worried should he be about missing the early purchase window again? Do we have the... Would we have any insider knowledge on this? Do we have any suggestions on how to make sure he gets one at the end of the month without having to resort to scalpers? I mean, okay, so I'll just tell you from my personal perspective, which has nothing to do with reality or knowledge or experience. You know, I have tried to pre-order, and I have successfully pre-ordered things before. I will never do it again, especially games. But I have done it. And you know, I will put the minimum amount of effort into it.
Sure.
And that minimum amount of effort might be, you know, going to the website, find out when it's supposed to be.
When the pre-orders are supposed to start. And
then setting an alarm maybe to remind myself to do it, and then going on there and trying to do it. But if it's too hard, I just give up, and that's it.
Okay.
And then I would have done what you just talked about with the PS5, which is I'm certainly not going to pay a bunch of extra for something. I'm not that guy. That's not going to happen. So I totally empathize with you on that one. And then if it just, you know, my level of effort is going to be directly proportional to how much want I feel for the thing. And, you know, I feel like you're kind of the same way in that you're like, I want it, but I don't want it. I'm like not going to stand outside of Best Buy on, you know, Thanksgiving night to make sure that I'm one of the first 3 people in the door so I can run to the back of the store and grab one of the 3 that are on sale and punch an old lady in the face to get it. I'm not that guy. So, you know, it's going to be kind of proportional to how much I want it. And the more you want it, the more effort you'll put into it. And if you don't get it, you'll be like, all right, well, I'll wait until it becomes available. And if it takes too long, you'll be like, you know what? I don't even want it anymore. And then it's a win. You get $700. You get $700 for being that guy, because that's what's, or in my case, $780.
Yes, you want the disc drive. Yeah, so for PS5 Pro, I am personally much less worried about this thing selling out the way the PS5 did. We are not in the midst of the global pandemic anymore. Sure. The chip shortage is still ongoing. Car makers are still having trouble as far as chip shortage stuff goes, but it's not like it was at the height of the pandemic, right as the brand new consoles were launching. We had, you know, those were brand new consoles. That was a whole new generation. This is a mid-generation upgrade. This is not like going from the PS4 to the PS5. We don't have everybody locked inside and for who knows how long, when people were like, well, I better get myself a PS5 or an Xbox Series X because this might be 10 years where we're all locked inside. We didn't know at the time. So none of those conditions are here this time. Plus, people are bulking at that $700 price. I don't think you'll have any trouble at all on September 26th, waking up at your normal time, perusing Amazon, Best Buy, and Walmart, and finding a PS5 Pro available to pre-order on September 26th. I don't think you'll have any trouble at all. But if you got the least bit of worry, honestly, in my experience, Best Buy has been the best about actually sending out the email when you sign up to be alerted by email when this thing becomes available. I would do that because that's pretty simple and doesn't cost you anything. I would, you know, set my phone so that it actually gives me a ping when an email for that email address that you're using for the alert, you know, when something comes in via push, actually ping me just for that day. And then, of course, you know, if the alert hasn't come on the morning of September 26th, it's not like I would wait for the email. But Best Buy has once in a while actually started the pre-orders, opened them up like the evening before, like on the 25th or something like that. And they do send out that email notification. So that's all I would do. You know, I would just have that email notification from Best Buy. If that doesn't work for some reason, I'd check Amazon and Walmart, and that'd be about it. I don't think you'll have any trouble.
Yeah, it's not a brand new console.
That's right.
You know,
it's not a whole new generation. When the PS6 comes out, I'll be more worried about the day one, the pre-order.
Yeah, this is iteration. This is a
and more
upgrade.
expensive than people were expecting. I don't think I'll have any trouble at all.
I would be surprised, but we have no insider knowledge. We have no
absolutely
ability
not,
to predict the future.
No.
We don't know what the demand's going to be, so plan accordingly, I guess. Ashley bought a Dell G3223Q 4K monitor.
It's a 32-inch 23Q
23Qs, whatever. 4K gaming monitor earlier this year. It uses an IPS panel, which should be called IBS as far as I'm concerned.
In plane switching. That's what it is.
And my butt shifts. Anyways.
Wonderful, Dom. Wonderful.
That's what you get for having a middle schooler.
Yep.
I may have a high schooler, but he feels like a middle schooler most of the time. I did spend a bunch of time with middle schoolers this weekend because my son is a scout and he is he had a fundraiser for his Eagle Scout project. So I had to go hang out with a bunch of scouts, and one of them followed me around rapping at me the entire time. He was like, "Do you want to hear me rap?" I'm like, Can I stop you?
Do I have a choice? Yeah.
He was like, "Nope." I'm like, "All right, then."
That's
let's
usually
go.
the answer to any question like that.
Anyways, so it uses an IPS panel with edge lighting, so the black levels and contrast are not the greatest, but Ashley mostly wanted it for its color accuracy, which has been reviewed very highly. By whom?
Oh, I mean, like by Artings and by Tom's Hardware and by PC Mag and that. So yeah,
good. As long as it's not Amazon.
No, they know what it is. Legitimately, objectively, good color accuracy.
Good. So when you choose a picture mode to use, one of the options is creator mode, and that lets you manually select whether to use the sRGB color gamut or the DCI-P3 color gamut. Both measure as being very accurate right out of the box, which is what Ashley cared most about. But he also got an Xbox Series X, and this is his main setup for all of his gaming and viewing. He doesn't even own a TV. Yes, you do. It's called a Dell. You got one.
It's not a television. It's a monitor. It doesn't have a tuner built in.
Whatever. Same difference. No one understands that anymore.
That's the definition.
So the Xbox Series X acts as a console gaming system and a streaming video system as physical disc player. And then he also has an M2 Mac Mini and a Logitech 5.1 audio system connected. Boy, I swear the internet loves that Logitech 5.1 audio system. They just think it's the bomb. And that's basically his home theater, as it were. And I got no problems with that Logitech system, but people act like it's as good as you can get before you go to like audiophile grade speakers, and that's just not the case. So he tried manually set up the Dell monitor to creative mode with the DCI P3 color gamut for watching Ultra HD Blu-rays from his Xbox with HDR enabled. That seemed to look great, but if you switch to a regular Blu-ray DVD, it didn't look right at all, mainly way too dark. He can mess around with the settings to get things to look acceptable, but it's basically on a case-by-case basic, and obviously that's a hassle. So is there a combination of settings he can use between his Xbox Series X and his Dell G3223Q monitor that would be a set it and forget it situation? I can already tell you it's going to be no, but whatever. Something that would just automatically switch between the best picture modes on the monitor, or perhaps Xbox could internally convert everything into a single output signal type, and he could just leave the monitor in one picture mode all of the time. Yeah, I don't know, but this is one of those things where you are dealing with... It's like dealing with different sources, but they're all one source.
Right.
And your
because the Xbox is doing multiple different things. It's doing games, it's doing streaming, it's doing disc playback. Yeah.
So the real solution, if it were, would be to actually use different sources, because then you could have the Dell for this input.
It doesn't have that many inputs, though. Dell monitor.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like in theory, you could say for this input, I want you to use these video settings, and for this other input I want you to use these other video settings. But since everything's coming from one input, the Dell has no way of knowing what you're doing. So if this were a home theater, what you could do is, like, if you had a Harmony or a Sofa Baton or whatever, you could maybe set some sort of macros that would, like, when I press this button, or whatever, then change everything all at the same time to this other thing. But I don't, that's not going to be something you're going to be able to do in this kind of situation. So it is going to be, well, I don't know. Rob, what is it going to be?
So yeah, it's so since part of the priority for you was having the color accuracy, I'm assuming that was more for you're doing work on this.
Yeah,
you know,
I would assume,
I don't really think that like color accuracy in games is so super duper important to you that was the priority.
No,
and I mean, this is one of the few remaining monitors out there that actually uses an RGB subpixel layout, which is another reason people go for it, because if you not need that text clarity, it's one of the few that's still giving you the proper text clarity with that traditional subpixel layout, because so many have switched to a different subpixel layout these days, or OLEDs have a fourth one, or they put them in a triangle like QD OLEDs do. So I'm thinking it's for work that you wanted the color accuracy. I don't imagine that's what you're doing on your Xbox, so that'll be your Mac Mini that you're doing your work on. And for that one, you're going to need to manually switch when you're switching between color gamuts. There's really no way around it. You're going to have to switch there. Now, Artings, when they're doing their recommended settings, like most places have noted that the standard picture mode, the one they actually label as standard, is very color accurate for sRGB. But if you want to be able to switch between standard dynamic range and high dynamic range, HDR, SDR versus HDR, they're recommending that you put it into the color calibrate mode. And that way it will switch between SDR and HDR. It'll automatically go between sRGB for SDR and DCI-P3 for HDR. And then you can still have very, very accurate color in those modes. Plus, they noted that the color mode, the calibrate mode, instead of the standard mode or even the creator mode that you've been using there, if you go into the calibrate mode, that it actually has the most accurate EOTF tracking when you're doing your HDR. So in terms of doing your work, you're probably going to want to follow Arting's settings because they're pretty in-depth on that. For connecting it to the Xbox Series X, if you want to have the best gaming experience when you're actually playing games off your Xbox, you pretty much need to put it into the console mode, which is one of the named modes there. Because if you want to have 4K 120 with VRR support through an HDMI connection, not through a DisplayPort connection, if you want to have that through the HDMI connection, they have a console mode to let you do that, and that's the way to get it working functionally gaming-wise with your Xbox. Now, that is supposed to automatically switch between SDR and HDR, but it isn't as accurate when it does that as the other picture modes, which might bother you. So you can, in the Xbox, force it to just always output HDR. That is one of the options where everything is just going to get converted to HDR all the time. I don't love doing that for movie playback, though, because it doesn't do the thing where it takes the SDR signal, preserves it, and just puts it into an HDR container. Like, that would be great if that's what it did. But unfortunately, what it tries to do is, like, give standard dynamic range an HDR type of look. Like, it tries gooses everything, like increases the contrast and everything. It does that version of like trying to make SDR look like HDR rather than just putting it in the container and leaving it alone. So even that I don't really love as a solution. So Tom is right. You sort of have to think of the Xbox as being separate things. When you want a game, I would definitely have it in the console mode. Right. That's really the only way to make it compatible. If you're fine with what happens when you just leave it in console mode all the time, because it does switch between SDR and HDR. And I mean, things will play back fine. It's just not the most accurate for movie playback, for example. It'll function perfectly fine. It's just not the most accurate. If you want the most accuracy, unfortunately, you're going to have to manually do it. So you're basically going to have 3 modes that you manually switch between. But I would follow Arting's settings. We'll have the link for that.
All right. Stefan in Belgium. Stefan says he typically keeps the equipment he owns until it breaks. Case in point, he has stuck with his 50-inch Panasonic plasma TV until last week, and that's with a 15-foot viewing distance.
For a 50-inch TV,
you should paint the side of the wall like a ship, like a boat, and just it's like looking through a porthole.
He can pay $30,000 for one of the 10,000 lumen projectors. It'd be so worth it.
There you go. Well, the plasma still hasn't broken, but his daughter needed a TV upstairs, so that was finally used as an excuse to get a new 83-inch LG G4 OLED, and the difference is definitely noticeable. Mm-hmm. I can see things. I can read the text on the screen.
Yep.
Audio-wise, he's still using an Arkham AVR 850. It has HDMI 2.0, no 2.1 of any kind. It has 7 amps built in, and you can actually expand it to a full 7.1.4 configuration if you add at least 4 channels of external amplification. It's old enough that it has regular HDMI ARC, not eARC. Mm-hmm. He has his receiver, along with his Xbox and Roku Ultra, all located in the AV cabinet outside the TV room.
It's actually just a TV box, like a cable TV box, not an Xbox. Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Xbox, but it's a TV box.
TV box, sorry. AV cabinet outside the TV room. There's a single HDMI cable from the receiver to the TV, and he's using a universal remote control brand MX880 to send RF signals from the TV room to an IR base station that controls the equipment in the AV cabinet. He was never using HDMI-CEC before. When he initially tried using his Roku Ultra through the Arkham receiver to his new G4 OLED, everything looked way too dark. So we decided to give the built-in apps a try, and of course that meant using HDMI ARC, which also meant turning on HDMI-CEC for the first time, and we can probably guess where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had this. Everything looked way too dark for me as well, and it had to do with settings. We talked about this already.
There was, and it's a fairly simple one, but not intuitive. It is the chroma subsampling setting in the Roku Ultra, and basically get two options when you connect it to an HDR-capable television, like your new G4 OLED. One of them is 420, and the other one is 422, and you might think, well, 422 is higher than 420. How could I go wrong?
Yeah.
No, you want 420. And that might be all you need to do. That might be the end of all of what's going to happen, is just setting that Roku Ultra to output 420. But I'll go a little bit more because there could be other things going on too.
So the very first time you went to Netflix using the GeForce built-in apps, it was great picture, great sound, and a single button press on the TV's Wii-like remote got everything powered on and functioning. But as soon as he used his old remote to switch over to his TV box, nothing has seemed quite right ever since. He's feeling like he's messed around with so many settings at this point that he's kind of lost the forest for the trees, so can we help him? What he was actually hoping was to get back to his old setup. All of his sources located in the AV cabinet, along with his AV receiver, all of that controlled with his URC remote, and all of his sources plugged in his AV receiver, nothing going straight to or from the TV itself. Is there a way to achieve that? I mean, there is. I think you can just continue to do everything the way you had it before, but you're going to have to figure out the settings that made it look wrong, the Roku. And Rob just described what worked for me, and which will
it's probably all it was.
Maybe work for you as well. Yeah. Probably, we hope.
Yeah.
But, there could be other settings. This is the thing. At this point, you've probably press so many buttons, you don't know what you're going to do. It's factory reset time, my friend.
It could be, Factory reset might be your friend here for sure. There's no reason that you need to use the built-in apps of your TV. I totally understand why you did, but there's no reason you need to. Roku Ultra definitely has access to whatever streaming services you need, and is fully capable of outputting 4K at 60 frames per second with HDR. That's as high as what will pass through your AV receiver, and you don't have to worry about HDMI 2.1 or 120 hertz when it comes to streaming video. So none of that is a concern. So probably in the Roku Ultra, all you need to do is change that chroma subsampling setting to 420. But because the OLEDs, the LG OLEDs, they do come out of the box in that power saving mode. If you've ever, heard anything about that absolutely makes everything look way darker than it should. So again, I mean, actually, we can point you to Artings again. They do a great job of just going through the basic settings and making sure you've turned off all of the power-saving features, because they're not just in one place. They're scattered around the menu in a few different places, all the various power-saving things. So that could be the reason why everything looked too dark, because when you go to Netflix on the built-in app, it by default goes to the Netflix calibrated mode, and so as the picture mode. So that might have looked a lot better just because of that, just doing things that way. But there's no reason why going through your Roku Ultra shouldn't work. So I agree, it's probably time to just you got a whole new setup here. I wouldn't mind going through my settings again just to check everything. So it's probably factory reset time. Just get you back to square one. Follow Arting's settings for your G4. That'll make sure all your power saving is turned off and you're in the correct picture mode. And your Roku Ultra should absolutely be able to do this. Make sure HDMI-CEC is back to being turned off in everything, because I can totally understand why you were getting all kinds of glitches once that stupid CEC was turned back on. Yeah.
There's a reason why we don't use it.
That's right.
And I appreciate this question in a certain way.
For sure.
I am a I'm a member of a lot of groups on Facebook, and like that. I know I'm old, but one of the reasons why I joined a specific group, a couple of groups that are like cycling mechanic based things, and the reason I did it was because I wanted to see when I first started working on bikes, which was now years ago. I wanted to see if I could answer the questions before I read the answers.
I see.
Like I would see that question and see the problem, or see the pictures that they used, and then be able to answer the question first. And when I first started, I was wrong, or I had no idea most of the time. Now I'm mostly right, or I mostly have an idea. But often those questions are asked as if certain things have definitely been ruled out. Like, my wheel is perfectly straight, and the rim is completely true. I'm like, first of all, I get wheels from the factory that are not straight or true. I have to true them as they come in because they do not come true from the factory. So I do not believe that this is true. And there are bike shops that won't true wheels, period, because they don't want to touch them, because it's not an easy process for a lot of people, and it's easy to mess up. And when it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. So I appreciate that what he just described everything and said, hey, I started using CEC and this is why. Yeah. It wasn't like my Roku does not work with my TV, therefore I had to use this, which is how a lot of people phrase their questions. Sure. So this was really good in that he's clearly open to whatever we have to say, and much better than that Australian guy who apparently is just going to buy a bunch of crap and slap on his walls no matter what we say.
I mean, the diffusion panels probably aren't going to mess up the sound, so knock yourself out.
I might name this podcast Diffusion Sucks, and you suck too. And you suck
Maybe
for
not
liking
that last
it.
part, but yeah.
And you suck for liking it. Infinite Gary. So when Gary asked us, that was a long way for me to just take a shot at our other listeners.
Sure was.
I'm glad. Thank you for going on the ride for me, guys and gals.
I'm letting Tom do his thing this week. He's been away for a while.
Yeah, I've been away. I gotta get this is my only human adult interaction.
Right. That's about right.
I went to some friend's house this weekend with my wife, and they all drank until they became incoherent. I just sat there with my fizzy water going, well, this conversation got real dull. They think they're hilarious, though. Infinite Gary. So when Gary asked his hypothetical about trying to compare a JBL Synthesis SDP75 Pre-Pro, which is a rebadged turn-off altitude, to his current Lexicon MC10 Pre-Pro, Robin Lee talked about how there are so many variables and so many potential adjustments that the only thing you can really figure out is whether you're someone who misattributes things and draws erroneous conclusions or not. One single sentence,
totally coherent. There's nothing wrong with that.
Commas and parens. Why do you hate me?
It's a completely coherent sentence. There's nothing wrong with that grammatically.
And that actually got Gary thinking. Joe also commented about how most people who already own a couple SVS PB16 Ultra subs, all of those people.
Yeah, there's plenty of them out there.
almost certainly aren't actually pushing them to their limits, but that won't stop them from wanting the new PB17 Ultra. And we laughed about all the comments we've seen of people complain that SVS didn't make an 18-inch driver. Yes. So Gary wanted to ask. First of all, it's not about the size of the driver, it's how you use it. But no kidding. Second, let's say you're one of those people with a couple of PB16 Ultra subs and you're interested in potentially upgrading to a couple of PB17 Ultras in their place. You've got a dedicated enclosed room. The PB16 Ultras definitely aren't struggling with too much air for them to pressurize, but you bring in a couple of PB17 Ultras and do a direct A-B comparison. Anyway, SVS still does free two-way shipping after all.
Yeah.
So you carefully position all of these subs. You carefully calibrate both setups the same and to the same target curve and store them as preset 1 and preset 2 for quick and easy switching. You blindfold yourself and you have a friend do the switching for you to make a blind comparison. Is that a legitimate A-B comparison now, or would we still say there are far too many variables? We'd only end up fooling ourselves and making a misattribution if we brought the PB17 Ultra, if we thought the PB17 Ultra sounded better than the 16 Ultras or vice versa. Like, what would we say it actually takes before we can declare non-erroneously that one piece of gear is better than another? I think you need to be able to do it not blindfolded, and I think you need to be able to do it, and it needs to be so obvious as to be ludicrous. It has to be the difference between a Honda, or not even a Honda. Let's not talk about that. A difference between a bicycle and a tricycle. You go, that is totally different than that. They are, yes, the same thing. In essence, they do the same thing. They get you to a place, but one has got 2 wheels, one has got 3 wheels, one goes fast, one goes slow. There's one you can turn in, the other one flips over the minute that you try to start turning. These are obvious, okay? What you're talking about, all this blind comparison, all these other things, I've talked about it multiple times in this podcast, but you are trying to pick out the smallest of differences.
Right, yeah.
The tiniest of differences.
Yes, the subtle.
And think of it this way. If you sat on a bicycle and then you sat on a tricycle, how many times would you not know what you were sitting on, no matter whether or not you were wearing a blindfold? Yeah. You would know 10 out of 10 times which ones you were sitting on. 10 out of 10 times. So if you're doing 20 tests, okay, in this blindfolded survey thing you're doing, you would still be able to pick out the bicycle versus the tricycle 20 times. So let's just say one time you just accidentally pressed the wrong button or whatever on the little thing that you're doing. So you'll give yourself 19, and then you know for sure that one is better than the other. That's where you need to be on these things. So the question you need to ask yourself is, if you need to do this rigorous level of testing in order to pick out the difference between two things, is it worth the amount of money, any amount of money, to buy the thing? Because not only are you now spending the money, which is a considerable amount, but you are also spending the time and the effort and the just the aggravation of going through this entire process just to pick out the smallest of differences in between two products. Now, this is important if you're talking about drugs. And this is important if you're talking about the effectiveness of medications and treatments for different diseases and stuff like that. But this is not where we're at. You should be able to put two speakers, and I mean, I've done it. You can put two speakers next to each other and go, these are definitively different than each other, and I don't need a blindfold to tell me that.
No amount of adjustment can bring them to be the same, or unless we ruin both of them to the point that they're both equally horrible. I suppose you can get them equal there, but I mean,
headphones,
that's obviously not the point.
I review so many headphones, and the reality is there are some headphones that are definitively bad, and there's some headphones that are definitively better, like way better, like better enough that you put them on, you're like, wow, these are really good headphones. But the vast majority fall in this gray area in the middle where you're like, they all kind of sound the same. They do.
The scenario that Gary laid out here, I absolutely would not say that that's the end of the legitimate A/B comparison. I'd say that's a perfectly fine starting point that you tried to carefully position and calibrate. So you've taken away the obvious variable of, well, the PB17 Ultras, the way I've set them up are just always louder than the 16 Ultras. You've taken away that variable. Good. You've taken away something egregiously obvious, like I misplaced them so badly that the 17 Ultras always have this massive dip at 50 hertz that the 16 Ultras don't have. So if I play a sweep, it's going to be super easy to tell them apart. You've calibrated and positioned carefully enough that you've taken away an egregious variable like that. But that's still not the end of the comparison if you've taken away those types of egregiously different variables, because what I want to now know, if this is a purchase decision, I'm going to actually pay all this money to upgrade from the 16 Ultras to the 17 Ultras, like, maybe in the scenario, in my first go around after my first careful placement and volume setting and calibration, I reliably detect a difference in the blind comparison. Maybe I do. But now I want to ask myself, with the tremendous amount of tuning capabilities that are built into both of these subs, that's even letting alone what your pre-pro might be able to do to the subwoofer signal before it even gets into the DSP amplifier of these subs. But just with the tuning capabilities of the subs themselves, is there something I can do there where this subtle but reliably detectable difference can be taken away by adjusting the parametric EQ or one of the, the low end or high end filters. Like, is there something relatively simple built right into the subs themselves that I could do where now I just make that adjustment and now I can't tell them apart? I can't reliably tell them apart. You would need to take at least that additional step over your starting point for me to say, okay, we're getting something close to a legitimate A/B comparison. I mention that because let's say you took a cute little 10-inch Polk sub, right? Which a lot of people have as like their starting sub. Costs like $250, $300 or something like that. And many people are happy with it at first, but then they want to upgrade. Okay, so you take your little cute Polk 10-inch sub, you put it in like a 14 by 20 foot room enclosed, and then you compare that against a PB16 Ultra. Okay? Right. Now, you are not going to be able to adjust the 10-inch Polk sub to equal the PB16 unless you so severely nerf the output of the PB16 Ultra that you have made them similarly horrible. Like, that's the scenario I talked about. That's not going to be one where you're going to be misattributing the huge gulf in performance in terms of output and extension of the 16 Ultra. It's like, no, that is because you changed the subwoofer in that case. That's why there was this massive difference between the 10-inch Polk sub and the 16 Ultra. It is that they are severely different products with severely different capabilities, and you're okay making that determination. But from the 16 Ultra to the 17 Ultra, in a room where you aren't like exceeding the capabilities of the 16 Ultra, and the 17 Ultra has just enough more output to get you to where you wanted to be. And we're talking like a 3 dB difference here, because that's what always the difference is between these. You're right on that borderline. If that's not the scenario, it's going to be so subtle that I revert back to the objective measurements, right? And I'm not saying that the objective measurements are even a justification for doing it. I'm just saying there's not going to be a scenario in this listening comparison where I am going to be reliably able to tell the difference, and it's not something that can be relatively easily adjusted on all that control that those subwoofers give you. They have a lot of variables built into them. You can adjust them to sound identical to one another, in the scenario that we're describing here. So that's where I go back to the objective measurements. Like, Josh Ritchie or somebody at Audioholics or, somebody else is going to do the CEA 2010 comparison, and they're going to be like, the PB17 Ultras can play 3 decibels louder than the 16 Ultras, and that is going to be an objective fact, and I'll believe them. But in the vast majority of rooms, I'm never going to care.
If you can't hear it, is it there?
Yeah.
That's the answer. That's the answer, really. If you can't hear the difference, if the difference is only on paper, or if the difference is only in your mind, then why are you paying for it? Because the minute that you stop thinking about it, you're going to be right back to the exact same experience you had before, and it's going to make no difference. I mean, if you've got money to burn and you want to have bigger subs in your room, it makes you happy to have bigger subs. Again, perfectly valid reason to buy something. I got no problems with that. But don't justify it with, they sound better. No, they don't.
Well,
they sound exactly the same.
I'm going to question myself more than the subwoofers, because if I did this scenario, you're talking the enclosed room, the pressurization is not a problem. You're not at the limits of these subs. If I am detecting a difference, I'm going to be like, did I set those subs up carefully enough?
I made a mistake. That's right. This is bias.
That's going to be my conclusion of like, I didn't actually position them carefully enough, or I didn't calibrate them carefully enough. That's the problem, not that one of these subwoofers inherently sounds better than the other under these conditions. So I'm guessing you want to go, but I really wanted to hit Scott's at the end, because he actually needs an answer, and the other two can wait if we need to. So
all right, Scott's theater room is 14 feet by 20 feet long. He's got a 108-inch projection screen mounted on the front wall, and he's using a Sony projector for about 8 years now. The room is completely dark, and he's using a 5.1 speaker setup. He's satisfied with his current screen size and speaker system, but he's feeling like it's time for a projector upgrade. If his new projector is going to support 2.1, HDMI 2.1, and HDR, and all those fancy features, and it's about time for an AVR upgrade too, and he's about $6,000 in total to spend. Prior to the CDA, he was leaning pretty strongly towards the Epson LS12000, which would cost $5,000, leaving him $1,000 for a new receiver that could handle his 5.1 speaker setup. He's thinking maybe an Onkyo TXNR 6100. But of course, CDA happened now. A bunch of new projectors got announced. So what do we say? Should he still get the Epson, or is there a better projector model for him now? Should he get the Onkyo 6100 or some other receiver instead? You should get the Hisense from Costco.
100-inch TV for 22. Look, you can get the flagship. You can get the TCL QM 851
for $6,000. You can get the LG. You can get this. You get the C whatever's for.
Oh, but that would be down to an 83-inch size. That's coming down substantially.
You just move it forward a little bit. Let me tell you.
From 108 to 98, you put the TV on a stand, you wouldn't notice the screen size difference at all. That is an option. If $4,000 for a 98-inch TCL QM851G, that is definitely an option. Although he blacked out the room, maybe he just loves projection. Because I'll have something to say on that.
I am going to tell you, you are going to get this TV, and you're going to be like, it is so bright it hurts my eyes.
It does.
It
can. You can adjust that. It doesn't have to be like that.
You will never ever look at a projector again and go, "Wow." I mean, look how big the screen is. No, you won't.
Yeah.
No, you won't.
Because I know 98 is smaller than 108, but you just put that TV on a stand. It looks completely natural now being about a foot closer. I actually think
if you just mount it on the wall and it's like
even mounts, the thickness of the TV.
That's the thickness of the TV is going to push it off enough that it's going to be the same size as the 108-inch screen that you had before. Bellini, my friend, as my uncle used to say. Bellini. You'll never go back. Yeah, you'll never want to go back.
That is a very, very, very serviceable option in this case. But I will just say, if it's like, come hell or high water, I am sticking with a projector. Now is a pretty nice time because the JVC NP5, which was $6,000 when it came out, and then was routinely available for $5,500, but that would have been, kind of pushing your budget there. They're down to $4,000 now because of that NZ500 that's coming out to replace it.
Right.
The NP5 at $4,000 is, in almost every way, a slightly better projector than the Epson LS12000. Now, the LS12000 is a really nice projector. If you had bought that projector, it's not like I think you're going to be disappointed with its performance as a $5,000 projector. No. The NP5 is not quite as bright as the LS12000, but it's great up to 120 inches. You go past 120 inches with the NP5, and I'm going to be like, HDR is maybe not looking HDR enough anymore. You go beyond 120 inches with the NP5, but you're at 108, absolutely no problem for the NP5. Light output wise. And then it's got JVC's excellent frame by frame dynamic tone mapping that the Epson does not have. That's really the biggest difference. But it also just has higher native panel contrast, natively deeper black levels. So we really like that MP5. And at $4,000, if you were going to get a projector, that's the one I would snap up right now. And if you're worried about its lamps instead of lasers, I mean, we like the fact that when it does start to dim, you can replace the lamp for about $400 in the case of the MP5, versus when the laser does eventually dim. It takes much longer than the lamp to dim, but it does eventually. But at which point you replace the entire projector. There's no replacing the lasers. So we're not gigantic fans of that. But anyway, that would be what I would get if you're getting a projector. I'd get the MP5 because it is down to $4,000 right now. Now, if you did get that 98-inch TCL QM 851G, it doesn't need to tone map anything because it goes to 4,000 nits. So, there's that. It's a substantially different experience, and I agree with Tom on there. So it's going to be between those two, I think. AV receiver. What do we think? I wouldn't point you to the Onkyo NR6100 because the only room correction it has is AccuEQ, and that is garbage. Yeah. And so given that there are definitely projectors around a similar, or AV receivers around a similar price point that have much better room correction built in, I would definitely think of that. Now, one option, if you're just an Onkyo fan for some reason,
sure,
the NR7100, I'm looking at accessories for less, where they're selling the NR7100 for $600 refurbished, and it's a great deal at that. For some reason, and I think I know the reason, but they're selling brand new units for $660, which is like, it's actually cheaper than the 6100 new to get a 7100 new from Accessories for Less right now. And the 7100, while it can do 9 speakers and you don't need it, that's fine. You don't have to use all 9 speakers. It comes with Dirac. You don't have to pay any extra for Dirac Live Full. It comes with Dirac Live Full, which is clearly so much better than ACU-EQ, which is actually still an option on the 7100, but we would not use that. We would use Dirac. You do not have to buy an additional microphone. You can use the microphone that comes with the 7100. Yeah. It'll work with Dirac with the smartphone app-based version of Dirac. That's where you would use. So you don't have to spend anything extra, and you can use Dirac for $660. If you like Onkyo, I would do that. The reason I think that's happening is because they just announced that RZ30, which is almost the exact same feature set as the 7100, but it can do the Dirac Live bass control with the dual independent subs. The 7100 doesn't have that. It seems like the RZ30 is more or less replacing the 7100 in the lineup. So I think that's why the 7100 is less now. But I would be A-okay with you getting the 7100. It's a really nice AV receiver. If you just didn't want Dirac, which, I mean, you started with Onkyo anyway, and you might not have been aware the 6100 doesn't have Dirac. Don't get the 6100. ACU-EQ is garbage. But yeah, if you were looking at Denon or Marantz, Denon's X2800H, $700, so right around the same price point. That's a 7-channel receiver, but you're sticking with 5.1. That would get you Odyssey instead, and it would be Mult-EQ XT. It's not XT32. It's not the highest end version. It is XT. And the X2800H from Denon does not have the option to pay extra to add Dirac. So you would be using Odyssey Mult-EQ XT if you went with that one. For that reason, if you wanted XT32, if you wanted the option to pay extra and get Dirac, Denon's X3800H is $1,100 refurbished from accessories for less than $1,600 new. So, I mean, you could get it if you spent $4,000 on either the 98-inch TV or on the JVC NP5 projector. You would have $1,600 left in your budget, in your $6,000 total budget. You could get the X3800H, but like, that's kind of overkill. If you're not going to go beyond 5 speakers, why do you need a 9 amps built-in, 11-channel capable AV receiver? Yeah. The only reason to get it is that you really want Odyssey XT32 instead as your room correction program. That would kind of be the only reason to do it. That seems weird to me. I think the Onkyo 7100 is the right choice for you. The price is great. Dirac is built in. You don't want ACU-EQ. The 7100 could do more than you need it to do, but that's fine. You just don't have to use it to its max.
All right, who we have left?
Okay, so we left on our list because we skipped over a couple, but Henry and Nathan are on the list and will be first up next week.
All right. We thank our listeners of the week. Thank our 134 patrons over at patreon.com/AVRant podcast, including Jason. Thank you very much.
That is right. Yeah, if you want to make a PayPal donation, you come to the website avrant.com, and on the right-hand side, you can click the image of a cup of coffee. Tom made that himself many, many years ago at this point. That's one way. But the other way is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 134 patrons over there. Jason, thank you for being one of them.
We also want to thank those who sent us notes of gratitude, including Mike, Derek, Gurinder, Mohsen, Karl, and Stefan. Thank you for thanking us.
That's right. I'll say the names one more time. Mike, Derek, Gurinder, Mohsen, Karl, and Stefan. Thank you very much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.